Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of you guys. Hello. Mike. Guess what day it is? Hump day. We've all made it to Wednesday. Well done, everyone. We've made it to Wednesday. How's everybody doing this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever it is, wherever you are? Good, I hope. I'm doing good. All my coffee in 5 hours is kicked in. Oh, thank you, Kids Chick. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. Okay. So let's talk about what's on the schedule for today. So last night in Ohio, the judge, the prosecution, and the defense were arguing outside of the presence of the jury, respective to what evidence was going to be allowed to be. Excuse me, I didn't mean to burp in your ear. I apologize for that. Hi, Tony. Hey, Shmeda. The judge and the defense and the prosecution were going over what evidence what items would be admitted into evidence for the jury to take back during deliberations. Okay. And they're still at it this morning. It is my understanding, because they didn't finish last night. They went till like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, excuse me. That's all right, Tony. You just drive safe, babe. So it is my understanding that what the court's intention is, and I don't really know how I feel about this, but their intention is to start today at 9 with the defense beginning their case in chief. Now, the reason I have concerns about this is because until all of this evidence is ruled on and either admitted or not admitted for jury deliberations, the prosecution can't technically rest. And I don't know, because I am not an attorney, but I don't know if that could potentially be problematic down the line in an appeals process if George Washington Wagner IV is found guilty. I don't know how that works. And I know, I'm always one of those people that errs on the side of caution. And so for me, I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this. I know that there is a ton of evidence, and I do have to say this. I was watching it, okay, and the reason why there's debate between the prosecution and the defense, really, and it pains me to say this, but right is right. The prosecution, I'll give you an example. So one of the pieces of evidence they want to be admitted, okay, comes from, remember when the Wagners were moving to Alaska? So they stored a lot of their stuff in this like trailer, all right? And inside of the trailer were totes. And inside of those totes were paperwork, receipts, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So in one of the totes was a letter of the switching over of the deed, and then the actual deed itself. Okay. However, when it was submitted as potential evidence, so at the trial, Miss Canepa has the BCI agent on the stand, Julie something, and she hands her this packet. It's paper clipped together, and asks her to identify this paperwork. Okay, well, there's other things with that deed and the letter of the deed, but the way that the evidence, the way that that the prosecution admitted it into evidence, marked it was, or labeled it was, as this deed, but it's more than the deed. Okay. And so the defense is having to go through this kind of stuff because if an evidence, if a piece of evidence is labeled something very specific, like a deed, okay, you would expect that the paperwork would be just the deed, not other things. And the reason that the prosecution feels it pertinent is because the deed is in Jake's name. The truck that it was found in is in George's name, and the defense is saying, "Look, we've never disputed that, but you can't be just, submitting packets of paperwork labeled one thing and they include other things." That's the problem, and that's what they're going over. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, we heard when they were starting to present evidence, the prosecution did, they were in like triple letters and stuff. Okay. So it's an incredible amount of evidence. And I have to say, if George's defense team didn't go through this with a fine-tooth comb, they wouldn't be doing their jobs. This is their job. Unfortunately, it's taking an incredibly long time, but I that's the plan. So hopefully they'll start soon. And then they're already in court. I'll let you guys listen to it. But Jen, you need to share your screen. Ta-da. Anyway, so that's the deal with that. And then as far as the Brooks sentencing, we are okay. So they are on Central Time in Waukesha. And so we will be joining them in Waukesha at, what time did I set the live for? 12:30. So there, because they set it for noon, so that's 1 o'clock Eastern time. So I set the stream for 12:30 so that we could chit chat a bit about the what happened yesterday. And believe me, there was some things yesterday. Oh, of course, now okay, so I think what's going to happen now is like a reset, and they've argued what they're going to argue for this morning. And they'll probably, what will most likely will end up happening, because I don't think they are going to finish in an hour, because they worked till 8 yesterday. And then they did from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. today. So probably they'll go long after the trial, after testimony is over for the day, blah, blah, blah. Right. Okay. So anyway, for Mr. Brooks, so what's on the agenda for him today is the state has rested. Okay. And they've presented everybody that's going to give a statement, and they're good. And then they said what they wanted to say, which resulted in a bit of a kerfuffle and an outburst. I'm gonna, it is what it is, that it happened, yada yada yada. All right, so Mr. Brooks, despite saying that there was going to be 20 some odd people testifying for him, or giving, it's not really testimony, speaking on his behalf, it's going to be 3, including himself, I think. I think that's right. Maybe 4. So maybe 3 people, and then the 4th person is him. To be honest with you guys, I'm tired. It was a long day yesterday. Yesterday was long because it was emotional. And so, but once Mr. Brooks is sentenced, that's it for me and this channel. whatever, any updates, anything like that, I'm not covering it because, quite frankly, I don't want to give him any more attention than he already has received on this channel. Um, and that's that. My morals and schedule won't allow for any more Brooks. I don't care what the update is. Not going to tell, it is what it is. That's my decision and that's that. So I shan't be talking about him anymore after his sentencing is complete. And I like the way that Judge Doro did it because so she wanted the state side all yesterday, and they likely probably, had there not been the clearing of the courtroom because of the threat called in to the courthouse, they likely um, would have finished yesterday, and then Judge Doro would have presented, or sentenced him today. However, the way that she's going to do it today, which I think is a good way to do it, so everything that she heard yesterday she mulled over last night, plus the stuff that she was doing on her own. And I don't know if you guys, I was watching her carefully, and it's much easier when I'm not streaming to watch because I put it on the TV, and obviously the TV is bigger than my laptop screen. So I was watching her, and she was taking copious notes, not only um, about the victim impact statements, because she wears glasses, and so when the camera pans up at her in just the right way, you sort of get a visual because it's reflected off of her eyeglasses. Anyway, I've too many details. So anyhow, she was listening to not only the victim impact statements and taking notes, she was also looking at Brooks and taking notes as well. And so she's gonna, I think that what will happen this morning is whoever's going to speak for Mr. Brooks, and should Mr. Brooks decide to speak for himself, that will happen. There'll be a break, and then she will sentence him. So, hopefully everything runs smoothly. And I don't really like looking at this. Also, I wanted to get you guys' opinions on stuff. And since everyone in here at this time that I can see that's chatting is a member. And I wanted to get you guys' opinion on something. So, as everybody is well aware, Peacock is airing a documentary, 3-part documentary on Casey Anthony. Okay. And I was thinking it will premiere November 29th. And I was curious how you guys would feel about me doing a video where, we cover the trial and the documentary. And I don't want to give too much away because obviously, I've got $11 billion ideas up in this brain, and I ain't trying to give that away for free. To, you know what I mean? Like, don't steal my thunder. So anyway, but how do you guys feel about if I were to do a video? Is that something that you guys would be interested? Is it something that you guys would watch? Are we pretty much done and over Casey Anthony? Because I'll be honest, I'm going to watch it, even though there's part of me that's like, why are you doing this to yourself? You're going to be frustrated because, quite frankly, there isn't anything that I believe out of Casey Anthony's mouth. Like, I don't think we're going to hear some startling revelation, or even if we did hear a revelation, it's like a bit like speaking to Chris Watts. You can't believe him, and you can't believe either one of them because they're lying liar mouths who tell lies. So I was thinking, okay, maybe not, but now I kind of want to know what she has to say. And there's some stuff that's been leaked already, and I have to say the things that have been leaked, I'm not like, okay, all right, I'll do it. All of the there's been stuff that's been leaked, and the stuff that's been leaked isn't like super spoiler alert ish. It's like, you kind of, it was sort of to be expected. And so yeah. We have to look. Well, um, I feel like with the Casey Anthony situation, I watched Vinnie Politan. I just adore him. And, he was reporting on the case back when it happened. I remember when Court TV was part of cable programming. Okay. And I distinctly remember watching um, the David Westerfield trial, California versus David Westerfield. He was convicted of the unaliving of Danielle Van Dam. I remember watching every single day of that trial. And I also remember Casey Anthony. I remember Nancy Grace being live, every night and doing her show. And I remember them being out at the house. I had completely forgotten, though, that she when they picked the jury pool came from Pinellas County, which is by where I am. I lived in Pinellas Park. So Pinellas County is Pinellas Park, Dunedin, Clearwater, Clearwater Beach. Where else? I forget. There's other little, anyway, but yeah, so it, the thing that caught my attention with Vinnie Politan's coverage of it, recent coverage, because he spoke about this documentary, um, was the judge, that he had the judge who presided over the trial, on his show that day or that evening. And what the judge said, in my opinion, was very profound, and it explained a lot. And I do want to discuss that a little bit, because I think it's important, and I think people, although we're all disappointed in the trial, right? At the verdict, we weren't disappointed in the trial. By the way, if you hear the rustling, it's me. We're moving outside. It's nice out this morning. I climb over Nestor, climb over Mac. You have a secure home whenever cats lay in the middle of the floor. Like they're not even pressed. Mostly Mac, you're not going out. Most of the time, cats want to lay somewhere high, but my cats lay on the floor. Anyway, so he said something that I thought was very profound, and I want to expound on that. As no, not doing the dishes, just walking around. I have to, it's like an obstacle course to get from my little bedroom / office to the backyard. Oh, so yeah. And I can't, what else was I going to tell you guys? Let me think. Give me a moment. There was something else that's coming up that I wanted to tell you guys. Obviously, I'm going to continue to do Dahmer. I do want to, there's, Amber's, I never can say it right. Amber's Alerts and I are going to do another panel, and we're going to go over some of Terry Hobbs' interviews that he's given over the years on YouTube. We're going to do that. That's another thing I have planned. But there was another something that now it completely. Dr. B and I are going to cover Kat Melander. Oh, let's see what's happening. I see movement in the courtroom. Nah, because I did the dishes already this morning before I have grown-up chores. Yeah. Really? Come on. It's a whole annoying thing, this being an adult. Terry Hobbs is the oh, hold on, I'm gonna robot because I can see the Wi-Fi. Okay, so Terry Hobbs, Kezchik is Steve Branch's stepfather from the West Memphis 3 case. All right. Sorry, you guys. It's recycle pickup day in the neighborhood, so it is what it is. So I'm just gonna be quiet for a second till the truck passes. Oh, I also want to say that when it comes to the Brooks
Was the
and
defense going to call witness
Brooks,
then?
his facial expressions are what?
Yeah, we need to hear it. I thought I had misunderstood. I thought there was no witness here. All right.
Okay, we have to go in for this. I can't be taking the chance on roboting, intermittent trash collection. No, ma'am. We're going inside. As you better keep I do something, staple them eyelids open, babe, because George Washington Wagner is going to testify. That's the what. Let me put the closed captions are on. The volume is up. Okay. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to yell. I'm a little excited. You want me to rewind it just a scotch to see if make sure that's exactly what they said? Let's make sure. All right, let me rewind it just 2 minutes. Just give me. Hold on.
No witness here. Was the defense going to call witness then?
Yes. Does he call George Washington Wagner?
Bruh, that's what he's. Oh, holy guacamole, y'all. That he said it. You heard it. And to think, I was considering what? Hold on. All right. If he surely he's not going to opt out. be. Hang on. Let me get over to the law and crime. This is big stuff, guys. Big stuff. No, that's not what I clicked.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you all here. Again, another day of trial. I will state for the record that the defendant is present. His attorneys, John Parker and Richard Nash. The state of Ohio is represented by the prosecuting attorney, Rob Jung, and by special prosecuting attorneys, Angela Canepa and Andrew Wilson, and also Ryan Shivers, especially the Ohio BCI&I is present today.
If he opts out, oh my gosh, I'm going to be livid. I kind of don't think he will, but that's the guy that goes over the opting out stuff with him. That's it. We're about to find out.
You're aware from yesterday's discussion that the state has not rested its case yet. However, the defense is given an opportunity to call witnesses, we may say out of order in the sense that the state hasn't rested yet, but the state being given the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses called by the defense, just as the defense has the opportunity to cross-examine the state's witnesses. Is the state ready to proceed today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
Yes.
Do you wish to call a witness at this time then?
Yes, Your Honor. We call George Wagner the fourth.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God? I do. You may be seated. The defense may begin.
Thank you, Judge.
Y'all, if you have friends who've been waiting for this,
Keep your voice up real
please
loud.
go share this out so they can come in here and watch. This is what we've been waiting for. It's here.
Name for the record.
George Washington Wagner, 4th,
Okay, George, and how old are you?
31,
And when's your birthday?
10/6/91.
All right. And George, you are the defendant in this case, is that right?
Yes,
Hi, Amelia.
You're sitting in this trial for.
Hey, Mrs. Troy.
yes,
I'm going to ask you some questions, George. I want you to keep your voice up. If you do not understand a question, please say so. I'll try to rephrase it. You understand?
yes.
We're all floored, Amelia.
Let's start with some very easy ones, George.
Thank you, Kez. I appreciate this, babe.
What's previously been marked as Wagner Exhibit 29. You recognize this person?
All right, I'm going to mute because the audio is trash.
Okay, do you remember when this photograph was taken? Approximately.
Sometime in 18.
Do you remember the circumstances?
Yes,
What were the circumstances?
they were doing feet measurements.
Okay. And that was regarding the investigation in this case, right?
Yes,
All right. Now, George, how tall are you?
6 foot.
Do you know how much you weigh right now?
No,
Okay. Do you remember about how much you weighed at the time this picture was taken?
somewhere around 280.
All right. Tell the jury about your weight problems or your weight situation throughout your life.
I've spent most of my life being overweight. I don't think, I probably haven't been under 250 since I was 13,
What's the largest you?
316-ish.
All right. Do you struggle with your weight?
Yes,
All right. And what would you say you average since the age of 21?
between 280 and 300.
You've lost a lot of weight since you were arrested, is that right?
Yes,
When's the last time that you can can remember you were the size that you are now?
Around 2007,
About how old were you?
15.
I want to show you what's been marked previously as Wagner Exhibit 37. Sure you recognize this person, right?
Yes,
And who is that?
my father,
All right. And what does he go by?
Billy,
And how tall approximately is your father?
6'6".
Do you know about how much he weighs?
At this point, no.
All right. Back when you got arrested, let's go back to that date, right?
I couldn't tell you. I know he'd lost a lot of weight at that period.
All right. Let's go back to the time of the crimes here in 2016. Was he heavier than you?
Yes,
Significantly heavier?
30, 40 pounds probably.
All right. George, where were you born?
Lucasville, Ohio.
And have you lived in Ohio pretty much all throughout your youth?
All of my youth, yes.
And did there come a time when your family lived on what's been called Bethel Hill?
Yes,
And about how old were you when you moved there, if you know?
a little over a year.
And so you lived there from the time you were about a year old or so until when?
So I was like 23.
And so that's where you lived your whole life, is on Bethel Hill Road,
Until that point.
until that point, yes. So let's talk about Bethel Hill Road a little bit. Let's talk about your early years on Bethel Hill Road. Let's talk about your education. first.
Hi, everybody. Hold on a minute. Let me pause
Did you
this.
ever go to a public school?
Hi, everybody coming in. It's good to see you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is what we have all been waiting for in this trial. George Washington Wagner IV has taken the stand. Here we go.
For a very short period of time.
Do you know about how old you were?
Not really. I can't remember it too well.
Do you know how long you were at the school?
A few weeks maybe.
So how did you get your education on Bethel Hill?
My mother homeschooled us.
Homeschooled you and Jake?
Yes.
And you are older than Jake, is that right?
Yes.
How much older than Jake are you?
1 year, 1 month.
And we'll talk about Tabby, your ex-wife, later, but about how old is Tabby compared to you and Jake?
She is 4 months younger than my brother.
So she's a year and a half roughly younger than you?
Yes.
So let's talk about the homeschooling. How did that work?
Mostly like normal.
Okay, tell us what your mother did. Tell me like a typical day when you were a youngster in the homeschool.
Usually every morning when we wake up, she'd start teaching us whatever was for the day, and it'd end around noon.
It would end around noon?
Yeah.
Okay. And were there certain assignments or how did that work?
Just whatever the school had set up for that day.
Was this a private company?
Yes.
All right. And did she have you sit around the kitchen table or explain how that worked?
I have my own desk in my room.
All right. And did Jake have a similar situation?
Yes.
All right. So you'd wake up in the morning, would you eat breakfast first?
Can't remember that.
Okay. And would you sit at your desk by yourself or just explain to the jury how that works?
I'd usually just sit there unless I needed help with anything, and then my mother would come in and help.
And did you have any subjects that you liked or disliked?
Not really.
Did you learn how to read?
Yes.
Did you learn how to do math?
Yes.
If you didn't have a favorite subject of any sort?
Not like I would call a favorite, but I've had ones I liked better than others, but
Okay, which ones did you like better?
math, history.
And what would you do, say, at the end of the lesson during the day? I think you said it went till noon about?
Yes.
What would you do after that?
After that, it was just take care of the animals, pick up around the yard, whatever my mom wanted done.
All right, let's talk about the farm, okay? What kind of animals did you have when you were younger?
Horses, cows, ducks, chickens, pigs, dogs, a little bit of everything.
All right, and did you have certain chores or responsibilities?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about, can you explain to the jury when you were very young what your chores were?
Every day we had to feed and water the animals, clean their pens, carry water from the pond.
All right, and let's start with the animals. I think you said you had chickens, right?
Yes.
Do you know how many chickens, just generally speaking?
A lot,
Like a dozen, 2 dozen?
30, 40 probably, maybe more at any given time.
All right. And what would be the purpose of having those chickens?
In the beginning, they were just my mom's hobbies until I was in my teens, and my dad would buy hundreds of them to fatten them and butcher them every year.
Okay. And what else did you have?
Horses,
Horses.
cows,
Let's talk about the horses for a minute. Approximately how many horses did you have?
it varied between 4 or 5 to 15 or 20.
All right. And what came after horses?
Cows,
Let's talk about the cows for a minute. Approximately how many cows did you have?
same with the horses, 4 or 5 to 15, 20, however
Okay.
many my dad drug in.
All right. And what other animals?
Pigs, dogs,
Let's talk about the
sheep.
pigs. How many pigs would you have at a time?
probably no less than 10, sometimes upwards of 80, 90.
Okay. What came after pigs?
We had sheep, goats, ducks, geese,
A little bit of everything.
a little bit of everything.
All right. And how did you acquire those animals?
My father used to run around and buy them and stock them up and then wait till the prices went up and then resell them.
And so one of your jobs as a youngster was to take care of these animals.
Yes.
And explain what you would do on a daily basis.
Daily basis, usually would start out with feeding and watering them, then we'd clean the stalls, move them around from pen to pen, or for the sake of cows or horses, we put them in different pastures depending on if they've ate this one down or not.
Okay. And what time would your morning start usually?
Usually after I was done with my homework, it's around noon.
So around
This
noon
is
is when you would
when I
often,
was a child, yes.
when you were a child, when we know the doctor. When you were a child, your chores would start after your school bus.
Yes.
And approximately how long would it take you to do your chores?
Usually 5 to 6 hours.
And did your brother have a similar situation?
Yes.
Did you ever have to help him with his?
Yes.
Explain that.
He was a lot slower than I was, and by the time my half was done, he would still have half of his left, and I'd have to help him finish his.
Now, let's go back and talk about your schooling just for a minute. How far did you progress with this homeschooling?
I quit when I was about 14.
And why did you quit?
I felt that I didn't need it anymore, and I just wanted to do my own thing. My father quit in the 6th grade, and
Did you know other people that had quit early?
not really.
And so what did you want to do when you quit school? What did you want to do with your life? Did you have any goals or aspirations?
When I was a young kid, I wanted to be either a game warden or a forester. Then when I got older, my father pushed me more towards being a diesel mechanic and a truck driver.
All right. And why was that, do you know?
My father didn't want nobody in the family that wore a badge.
Why was that?
He thought all law enforcement was crooked.
And did he teach you that as a youngster?
Yes.
What else did your father teach you when you were a youngster?
How far back?
Let's start at the beginning, all right? Let me rephrase that. When you were young, did you have a pretty good relationship with your father?
Yes.
Explain that relationship when you were young.
When I was a young kid, my dad used to take me fishing every Saturday and Sunday. He taught me how to ride a horse, taught me how to hunt, taught me how to do almost anything with a vehicle,
All right, and would you hunt and fish with him on a regular basis?
almost daily.
And where would you do that?
My grandparents' farm,
All right, let's talk about your grandparents' farm. What is that called?
the Flying W.
Do you know how many acres approximately the Flying W is?
I know what I've been told my whole life, but it's been up and down from different people.
Approximately
Somewhere around 3,000,
3,000
close to it.
acres?
Yes.
All right. And Bethel Hill, is that on the Flying W large property?
It's technically part of it. It's just got a road that separates it.
Right. Separates it from the main house, right?
Yes.
And is that where you grew up?
Yes.
All right. And who founded or who started the main house, the Flying W Farm?
My grandfather,
What was his name?
Bob Wagner, or George Washington Wagner Jr.
All right. He's your grandfather, right?
Yes.
But he went by Bob.
Yes.
All right. And your dad's name is George Washington Wagner III, correct?
Yes.
But he goes by Bill.
Yes.
All right. So you're George Washington Wagner IV, and you go by George.
Yes.
How did you feel about having the same name as your dad and your grandfather and others?
Very complicated.
Very complicated. Explain that.
My mail would go to my dad. They'd mix up our social security numbers. Stuff that he owed on would be sent to debt collectors on my name, and vice versa. His would go to my grandfather's. My grandfather's would go to me. It was complicated.
And eventually you had your own son, right?
Yes.
And what's your son's name?
Bovine Hunter Wagner.
Why is it not George Wagner V?
He will not have the problems I had
What kind of problems do you need?
with everything getting mixed up between the name.
All right, you wanted him to have his own identification?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about other things your dad taught you that, well, let me rephrase. Your mom taught you the schooling lessons, right?
Yes.
Did your dad participate in that at all?
Only in history.
Only in history? Explain that.
My father is a history buff.
He liked history,
Yes.
and he taught you history throughout your life?
Yes.
How would he do that?
Just recite stuff that he's learned in his life. And everything that he's watched and read.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes and no, as much as a kid can.
All right. In your youth, did he teach you other things?
Youth as
Well, when you were young. Let's say-
teenager and younger, or
Well, let's start before the age of 10.
just how to hunt, fish, ride a horse, how to work on a farm, how to drive a car and a truck.
And how about after the age of 10, say between 10 and 15, did he start teaching?
Yes.
Explain what he started teaching.
My father taught me how to open a lock, how to steal fuel, how to steal loads or break into loads,
What do you mean by loads?
tractor and trailer loads, semi-loads of whatever might be on it.
And how did he do that?
Just go around and show you how to open them and get in them and drive off with them.
And let's start with, I think you said he taught you how to pick a lock.
Yes.
How did he actually do it? Did he set you down, explain how that worked?
He bought like a lock pick set, comes with like a whole bunch of different locks and picks, and then you set us down for hours until we could figure out how to open it.
And about how old were you when that started?
Around 13.
And what would he do, if anything, with you once you learned how to do that?
After my brother and I learned how to do it, he'd go from like hotel to hotel in different counties and open vending machines.
Would he do it or would he have you do it?
Usually you'd have my brother do it,
Why your brother?
because my brother can open a lock in a matter of seconds,
All right. And what about you?
3-4 minutes.
So your brother was a little better at picking locks than you,
Yes.
but your dad took both of you around to pick locks.
Yes.
What kind of locks would he have you pick?
Padlocks, vending machine locks was the most common, door locks on trucks, ignition switches.
All right. And what would be the purpose?
The vending machines,
Yeah.
he would take the coin box and the cash box out of them.
All right. And would he do this during the daytime, at nighttime? How would that work?
With the hotels, usually in the middle of the day.
Would that be after your lessons and after your tours, or how would that work?
Yes. Like in between, really.
I'm sorry?
In between it, really.
Okay.
He'd usually go like once or twice a week.
All right. And did he teach you anything else around that age?
Just how to break into trailers and drive off with loads and
All right, explain how that works.
Yeah, slow down, George. We want to get the full picture here.
with the loads, you go around, take the padlock and the hinges off so you don't break the seal. If the seal is broken, it's instantly somebody's been in it, so you gotta take a hinge off and open it without it. But you see what's in the trailer. If it's something you wanted, then you unload it. If it's not, you put the hinge back on. Nobody ever knows it was opened.
All right. And about how old were you when this started?
It started around 2005,
So you would have been about 14 or so?
roughly.
And brother was with you?
Yes.
And would your dad drive you, or how did that work?
He would load us in his truck with him. We'd just drive around from truck stop to truck stop.
All right, and he would pick out the truck.
Yes.
Did he have any like methods or codes or anything like that as far as how would he pick out a certain truck?
Usually it had to end up being a company truck, but Walmart was like the one he went after more than anything.
And why was that, do you know?
He despises Walmart. I don't know
And
why.
So you would go into these trucks and steal the content.
Yes.
Now, did your mother know about these activities?
Yes, she was there 99.9% of the time.
She was in the truck with you
Yes.
from this young age,
Yes.
and she knew your father was teaching.
Yes.
Were there other things that your father taught you around this?
How to steal fuel.
Steal fuel.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Starting out, it was ground holes with a 12-volt system, which is a lot slower.
A ground hole.
Yes.
Explain what that is.
All of your truck stops and gas stations have huge tanks that sit underneath the ground, and they're usually padlocked, and you pull over and open the padlock, drop a hose in, and you pump the fuel out of it.
All right, so what kind of, we want to take this step by step, all right? So what kind, was he drive a pickup truck or a big semi truck? How would this work?
Yes, it started with a Ford Dually and a stock trailer
All right, and where would you be?
in the trailer.
All right, and what would your father do?
He would pull over it until the hole in the floor of the trailer was even with the lid, and then my brother would open the lock, and then we would drop the hose in until the tank was filled.
All right, and did you have some sort of pump or contraption? How did that work?
12-volt fuel pump
All right, and where would you, so you would pump the fuel out of the ground into where?
into a 500-gallon tank.
And that was inside the trailer?
Yes,
And how often would you do that with your father?
every weekend.
And how old were you about?
Started in 05, so 14, 15-ish.
All right, and how long did this go on?
With the stock trailer and the Ford,
Yes.
a year and a half or so.
Was your mother aware of it?
Yes, she was in the truck with my father.
She knew what was going on.
Yes,
So what would you do with the fuel once you stole it?
my father sold it for half price.
Where would he sell it?
Anybody he found that wanted fuel that ran a diesel truck, usually go from trucking company to trucking company and sell it.
All right, so this was mainly or only diesel fuel?
Yes, only.
Only diesel.
Gas explodes, diesel don't.
Okay. So.
Oh, well, we're all learning a little something here today. Thank you, George.
Trailer?
Usually it would stay in the trailer unless he didn't have somebody to buy it at that time. Then it would go into a 2,000-gallon tank at the house.
At the house?
Yes,
So we're talking up on Bethel Hill.
yes.
Did you have gas tanks or containers there?
Many of them.
Many of them. Explain that.
Probably 20,000 gallons worth at one time.
So you had enough storage capacity to hold 20,000
Yes.
gallons of fuel.
There's never been that much stored there, but we had the capacity for it,
What would be the typical amount stored there?
around 1,000 gallon.
And would that be for your personal use? Would it be for,
Mostly personal.
because your dad would sell the remainder?
Yes,
And what kind of trucks did you and your family drive at that time?
always a diesel.
Always a diesel,
It's free fuel. Free fuel.
free fuel. So you always had diesel trucks and free fuel.
Thank you. Thank
What
you,
kind of trucks did you
Henforcer.
like?
It's good to
And
see you,
growing
babe.
up?
As a kid,
Yeah,
Dodge.
Dodge. Why did you like Dodge?
I like the Cummins engine.
The
Did
what?
there come a point in time when you got a tattoo of a Cummins?
Yes,
Explain that.
I had the Cummins C put on my arm,
Which arm?
my right arm,
All right, where on your right arm?
on my shoulder.
So why did you do that?
I was a Cummins fan.
Is that common among young people here?
It is until they get older and grow some common sense.
Okay. So, your dad taught you to steal fuel and pick locks,
Yes.
steal loads out of semi-trailers.
Yes.
Did he teach you anything else around the city?
My father,
Yes.
as far as illegal stuff, no.
Was, when you would go out with your father, would he ever teach you to look out for things or not look out for things? Was there anything like that?
That went into the theft of loads and stuff.
Okay, explain it.
So the job was you were always supposed to make sure you could see a cop before they seen you, or to know where every camera was.
All right, so what, Explain how he taught you.
Enforcer.
It really goes back to when I was a kid and he was still around in Pennsylvania a lot. Uh, for every cop me or my brother would see, we'd get $1 when we were a kid.
All right,
And that goes back to like 8 years old, even before he started the theft.
all right. And how long did that last?
Till we were 10, 11.
All right, and did that ever?
And then
change
what?
it?
You were just looking out for free?
It changed to where when he started doing the theft, he started teaching us how to find cameras and actually put an effort into it.
And what would he do? I mean, how would
He would go around and start out with we'd go down one street or something, and if we missed one that he missed, then we'd lose the four-wheeler for a week. Like if he pointed one out that we didn't see, we'd get four-wheeler taken for a week.
All right, so you had four-wheelers up on the farm.
Yes,
Explain what a four-wheeler is.
it's just an ATV.
All right,
At
How
that
many-
time, it was a Honda.
pardon me?
At that time, it was a Honda.
All right, did you have more than one four-wheeler at that time?
5 or 6 of them.
It was common to use on the farm?
Yes,
What would you use the four-wheeler?
hunting, fishing, four-wheeler tag. Most people won't understand what that is.
What is that?
It's kind of like bumper cars with a four-wheeler. If you get hit, you're it. Then it's your turn to run everybody else down.
So did you have, where would you take the four?
All over my grandparents' farm and all the neighboring farms.
Would you ever take it on the surrounding roads too?
Yes, many a times.
And were there certain paths that you made on the farm?
Yes,
Did your brother do the same thing?
not very often. If he did, it was like 2 mile an hour, and me and my uncle always ran off and left him.
And who was your uncle?
Chris Newcomb.
All right, Chris testified earlier, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about Chris for a moment. Explain your relationship with Chris.
Chris is more like a brother to me than an uncle.
Why do you say that?
We're almost identical in everything that we like and do.
I'm sorry?
We're almost identical in everything we like and do.
All right. And how old is Chris compared to you?
Oh, sweet
Year and a half older
Jesus.
than me.
So what did you consider him?
More like a brother and a role model.
Mm.
Was he your best friend, or how would you describe that?
Best friend wouldn't cut it. More than a best friend.
More than best friend.
Yes.
Did you spend a lot of time with him?
Yes.
Explain.
Every weekend when we were kids, sometimes he'd stay a couple weeks at a time, or I'd stay with him. Or
And he would stay with you on Bethel Hill?
yes,
And what type of things would you do?
go mudding, hunting, fishing, just see how far we could go on a four-wheeler in a day.
And would Jake be part of this?
In his own way, sometimes yes.
All right.
He was always left behind.
And why was he left behind?
He didn't want to get his four-wheeler or his dirt bike, whatever he had dirty, and he'd run like 2 miles an hour.
And how were you and Chris doing?
Kind of like a bat out of hell.
All right. And let's talk about when you were growing up with your brother Jake. You like to hunt and fish and do the four-wheelers, right?
Yes.
What did he like?
He spent most of his time watching cartoons and playing video games and collecting action figures.
Collecting,
Action figures.
explain that.
What do
He
you
had
mean?
hundreds of
Explain
them.
what?
Every dime he got as a young kid, he spent on action figures.
All right. And
Well, what do you mean? Wait, you don't know what action figures are?
He would set them up on a shelf and stare at them for hours.
And did you play with them as well?
No, but I would go in and move them when he wasn't there just to see if he'd notice it, and you could move it like a centimeter, he'd know.
And did that ever cause any problems?
Many, many fights,
Would you do that just to kind of devil your brother?
just to antagonize him. Yes.
Antagonize him? And he liked to watch cartoons, you said?
Yes.
And what else?
Played video games all day.
Did he have any particular video games he liked?
Marvel Universe, Resident Evil, Left 4 Dead. There's another one, I can't remember what it was.
All right.
Country Joe, what's up?
They've got like movies of it now, but they don't really follow what the comic books were. The games follow the comic books.
All right.
Oh,
Zombie game.
hold on. I'm going to push pause real quick for a little commentary on
Like
Mr.
zombies?
George.
Yes.
George, there's something in your tone about you when you testify about your brother and his video gaming and what he played and the action figures and yada, yada, yada. But little bit of mm, a condemnation in your tone. And you seem to know an a bit about the games and whether or not the video games follow the cartoon versus the comic books. So what? You just couldn't help but learn because you're sitting there forced to watch him. Yeah. Hey, Country Joe, you ready for this? This is the laugh that I perfected when I was going to be on panel with you. I mean, as you. Are you ready? Hold on. All right, let's play.
And so, if I understand it, he would stay at home and do that type of activity while you and Chris were out doing outdoor activity.
Yes,
Mm,
That was common.
yes.
okay.
And so, what other type of things would you and Chris do as you got older?
Drink, party, run girls.
Say drink and party.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You mean drinking alcohol?
Yes.
When did you start drinking alcohol?
Like daily or
Well, the first time, if you're about
12, 13 years old.
I'm sorry?
12 or 13 years old
All right. And when did you start partying? So to say?
when I got my driver's license.
And when was that? When you were what?
October of 07.
So when you turned 16?
Yes.
Thank you, babe.
And
Thank
who
you.
would you drink with, or what were those circumstances?
Oh, he's
uncle.
100% guilty, y'all.
A couple friends of mine from Nipshin. When I got a little bit older, I used to drink and party with Frankie a lot.
Okay, Frankie.
Roden.
All right. Were you friends with Frankie?
Yes.
How did you meet Frankie?
Complicated situation.
Okay, take your time.
He texted me one morning at like 5 a.m. in the morning, cussing me out particularly.
All right. But you must have known him or somebody in his family before then?
I knew Hannah before him,
You knew Hannah Roden
Yes,
before
but I
Frankie?
didn't know they were brother and sister at that time.
Okay. And at what age approximately did you meet Frankie?
I was 18, I think.
All right,
So at
let me
this
just
point
pause
in
this
time,
real quick
were
for
Jake and
for
Hannah together?
CJ because I don't want to talk over his testimony. All right, so CJ, this is what had happened back in on April 16th. No, April 22nd of 2016. The 8 members of the Roden family were found unalived. There were 4 separate crime scenes. So 3 of the crime scenes were actually on the same property. They were all trailers on this big parcel of land. And then the 4th crime scene was a camper that was like a mile and a half down the road. Okay. And so through the process of, investigating this crime, it the Ohio BCI, which is like so it's the state police. Okay. So they are higher than the local police, but lower than FBI. Okay. So they were, they conducted a very thorough, I mean, this investigation is the most expensive and longest in, I don't know about longest, but just the most expensive investigation ever in the history of Ohio. Okay. So as they're developing evidence, what they learn is that George, who's on the stand here, his younger brother, Jake, had a child with Hannah Mae Roden. Okay. And the motive for this crime apparently was Angela Wagner, who is Jake and George's mother, and as well as Jake, were concerned because Hannah was dating other men, and they were worried that she was going to make they didn't like the choices she was making in men, and they thought that their common daughter Sophia was going to be potentially molested. And so this entire family, so the father who goes by Billy, Angela, the mother, Jake, the younger brother, and George, the older brother, planned this murder. Okay. They were meticulous in some respects about it. They purchased 2 pairs of shoes from Walmart so that they could, they didn't wear their regular everyday shoes, right? So that they took a lot of countermeasures. They collected the bullet casings after all of this. So in this happened in April. I always get it mixed up. April 22nd, 2016. The Wagner family was not arrested until November 13th of 2018. Okay. On the 5th anniversary of the crimes, April 16th of 2020, Jake Wagner and Angela Wagner pleaded guilty. Jake pled guilty to 8 counts of first degree and premeditated intentional homicide, and Angela, I forget what she pled guilty to, probably conspiracy and stuff like that. Angela is going to have 30 years. Jake Wagner will never be out of prison, but he and his mother both testified against George in this trial, and as part of their plea agreements. And Billy Wagner, the father, his trial is scheduled for next year. So that's what so what this guy, yes, he's pled not guilty, and essentially his defense is this: I didn't know, didn't go, didn't show. It is not my fault that I was born a Wagner. I've been distancing myself from my family. I don't roll with them, I don't roll like them, and I don't want anything to do with them. Unfortunately for George Washington Wagner IV, currently on the stand, the BCI has a ton of audio recordings in which they're discussing plans, George Wagner and his mother Angela, about moving to Alaska, where they did put the home they rented in Alaska in George's name. He moved there with his son, Wolvine. George was asked a ton of follow-up questions respective to this home. Not only that, but he had been to Alaska himself and had come across a grandfather team who sold deer jerky in Alaska in the summer. And he talked about how much money they made and that maybe the Wagners could do something like this. This was the least distancing I've ever seen in my entire life. There is nothing in those conversations that the state played that would lead anybody with any type of critical thinking skills to believe that George Washington Wagner IV was distancing himself and wanted no part of his family, being part of his Wagners. Oh yes, babe. Oh yes. This is like day 44, babe. We've been watching this trial for 5 ever. All right, let's get back to his testimony. But there's your recap, y'all. One more time for Country Joe.
No.
They were not together.
No.
But talk about the things you and Frankie did, or did that friendship develop? Explain that.
From the first morning that I actually met him was the morning that he texted me. After that, we ended up becoming friends and hunting and fishing together.
And how often would you do that?
That first summer, daily.
And about how old were you then?
I was 18.
All right, so you had your driver's.
Yes.
Would he come over to your place? Would you go to his place? How did that work?
A little of both.
And did he have any children at that time?
No.
Did you have any children at that
No.
time? So you would spend your time hunting and fishing with him?
Yes.
Did you consider him a good friend, or
I considered him one of my best friends.
did you have a lot of friends at that age?
I wouldn't say a lot, but a handful.
And so you told us about how you were homeschooled, right?
Yes.
Did you have much social activity before you got your driver's license outside of Bethel Hill?
Not really. The majority of my friends are all people that were kids of my dad's friends,
Would you meet them at Bethel Hill?
Bethel or the surrounding farms,
Okay. And so did that change at some point?
when I got my driver's license,
And why is that?
because I have freedom
You had
and
freedom.
I could leave when I wanted.
And did you?
Yes,
Explain that.
like daily.
Every day.
Yes.
What would you do?
I hang out with my uncle or Frankie or Sean and Nathan Walls, and Garrett Leaf.
All right. And those were your other friends.
Yes.
What type of things would you do together?
Hunt, fish, go mudding, go to the county fairs, all the fall festivals.
All right. And did that cause any problems back home on Bethel Hill?
My mom was never happy about it.
Tell us about that.
She always said that I was leaving my brother to do all the work and I needed to be more like him and stay home.
And were you leaving your brother to do all the work?
Yes, I was,
Okay. And why were you doing that?
because I didn't want to stay home. I wanted to go drink and party and hunt and fish with my friends.
And what about your dad? Did he have anything to say about that?
Not really. As long as I was available for the weekends when he needed me, that's all he cared,
When you say when he needed you, what do you mean by that?
for fuel and loads, for fuel and opening trailers.
And so, if I understand you correctly, when you turned 16 and got your driver's license, how did that affect your life?
It broadened it by a lot.
I'm sorry?
It broadened my life by a lot.
All right, explain that.
I was more mobile. I got to see a lot more things, do a lot more things.
All right, did you have your own truck?
Yes,
How did that come about?
my father bought it for me.
And do you remember the kind of truck it was or anything?
My first one was a '79 Chevy.
Chevy truck.
Yes,
About how much did it cost? Do you remember?
$2,500.
Did you have the money or
My father bought it
was that a birthday gift or
for when I was getting my permit.
when you got your permit?
Yes,
Did your brother have his own truck?
yes.
Explain that.
He got his 3 or 4 months before mine.
All right, what were the circumstances there?
He always wanted a particular truck and it really didn't exist. And back then, seeing a truck with a Cummins in it was out of the ordinary. Now it's, don't matter what you see it in, it's normal.
Okay.
But back then it was unheard of.
All right, what kind of truck did he want?
71 Chevy was a Cummins and 5-speed.
All right, and there's a story about how he found one.
Yes,
Can you tell that?
we were going down the road in Kentucky and he said the truck he wanted, he seen over the bank. Nobody believed him.
All right, go on,
And
explain that.
ended up, my dad turned around and the truck was there.
All right, and explain that.
My
Explain what
mother,
happened there.
my mother made my father buy it for him.
All right, was it a cheap truck, an expensive truck?
It was $16,000.
And so about how old were you when that happened?
I was a month or so away from getting my permit.
Okay, and did you have your truck already?
No.
So he got this $16,000 truck before you got any truck?
Yes,
Did you get a truck soon after, or how did that work?
2 or 3 months after,
All right, and do you know how much your truck cost?
$2,500.
And how did that make you feel?
Considering the one I wanted I was told no for, and then a couple weeks later, they bought my brother's truck that was the same price. Not a good feeling for a 15-year-old.
And did you express your feelings?
I brought it up many times my entire life.
A little bit bitter about that.
Yes, still am.
And so, with respect to your brother's truck, did he drive it around? Explain what he did with the truck.
He left it parked under a portable carport and washed it and waxed it every day, and nobody was allowed to touch it.
Nobody is allowed to touch it?
No.
Right. Was it clean?
Spotless.
Did he have any rules about people? Did he drive the truck around?
I'm gonna object to this. I don't see any relevance to the issues that we're here for.
I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Did your brother drive the truck?
When it did get driven, you had to sit on plastic bags or wear Walmart bags on your seat. You couldn't move. There was no eating, no drinking in it, no wiggling, no nothing.
And what about your truck?
Mine looked like all my friends' trucks, a Southern Ohio Country Boys truck covered in mud and filled with trash and beer cans.
Was there a time when you started hanging out at what's called Big Bear Lake?
Yes, when I met Frankie.
All right, tell us about that.
The first time that I actually went down there with Frankie for a party was some girl he knew's birthday party.
All right, what is Big Bear Lake?
It's a campground.
And describe the campground.
It's got a big lake, a store, a whole bunch of campers. It is built below Frazier's old resort.
I'm sorry?
It's built below Frazier's old resort.
Okay, and did you spend a lot of time?
With Frankie, yes.
About how old were you at that time?
18 and a half, 19 when I started going down there with him.
Okay, and describe the activities you would do, how often would you go there, et cetera.
Ride the four-wheeler, drank with all Frankie's friends, run back and forth to the Briar Patch on beer runs.
What's the Briar Patch?
It's a gas station.
All right, that's where you biker?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
And then we just sit around campfires all night and play drinking games. And
All right, and would you stay overnight?
yes, sometimes 2-3 days.
Did you,
Usually the weekends.
did you have a tent or anything?
Yes,
Is that where you would stay?
yes. My tent.
You had a tent?
Yes.
Describe your tent.
A Jeep tent. It's got like 3 rooms in it.
Kind of a big tent?
It's a big tent.
Could you stand up in it?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. But it had 3 separate rooms?
Yes.
And did you have a particular spot that you would stay at Big Bear Lake?
And well, Frankie called him his uncle, but Robin Waddell's yard
And who is Robin Waddell?
owns the lake.
So you would set up the tent in the same spot every time?
Yes.
And describe the drinking parties or whatever that you did there.
We played drinking games and drank until one of us fell out, which was usually me.
Right? And how many people would be there at this?
Between 6 and 15. It varied.
Did you make any friends there?
A couple.
Ooh,
I started hanging out with Brett Hatfield there, Chelsea Robertson. That's the ones that's really major, the ones I would call a friend. The rest were just people that was there.
did you enjoy that?
Yes.
Did that cause any problems back at the home on Bethel Hill?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
Country
my
Joe
mother let me get
absolutely
down
has a
there.
channel. Let me get her
It was
link
a
for you
bad
guys.
environment,
Un
and
momentito, por favor.
bad influences, and I was basically going to end up sending myself to hell from it
And how would she tell you that, or when would she tell you that?
almost daily.
Was Jake with you?
Yes, but not at the drinking party things. He stayed at the tent.
All right, describe what he would do while you're at the drinking.
He would sit in the tent or around the campfire back in the yard where the tent was with Hannah all night.
With Hannah, he was with Hannah at this point.
Yes.
But he wouldn't join in with the drinking.
No, and he wouldn't let Hannah either.
Did Hannah try to join sometimes?
Yes.
And what would Jake?
Jake wouldn't let her go.
Do you know why?
He didn't want Hannah having bad influences or drinking or partying.
Did you, were there times
Sorry,
that,
what's the basis?
The foundation,
Oh,
what Jake was thinking or feeling, he's not in a position to testify to that. And Mr. Parker's also leading him.
Say it again.
Mr. Parker is also leading him.
All right, you want to ask your last question again?
sure, I can rephrase.
All right.
When you're at Big Bear Lake and you had these drinking games, who would participate if you know?
The regulars,
The regulars.
Brett Hatfield, Frankie, me, Chelsea Robertson, those were the regulars.
There were other people that were there
Yes,
occasionally.
but went in and out.
Was Jake ever join the drinking party?
No,
Would Hannah ever join the drinking party?
no.
So this caused friction, if I understand what you're saying, with your mother.
Yes,
Did it ever cause any friction with your father?
not really. My dad didn't care as long as I wasn't driving.
And is that true that you didn't drive?
No, I've never drank and drive.
You liked to drink
Yes,
at that time.
yes.
So how long did this go on down at Big Bear Lake?
2 years roughly.
2 years?
Yeah.
And it was kind of a common situation, is that right?
Yes.
Now, let's go back up to Bethel Hill for a moment. describe the living situation. When you were very young, when you were first there,
Yes.
all right? Which house did you have, or can you describe the house that you were living in?
The first house was a single wide trailer.
Single wide trailer. And how long did you live there? Until what age?
Lived in that one. I don't really know how to answer this one because it's like that house was like morphed into another house.
Okay, let's talk about before it was moved.
97-ish.
Okay, so how old were you about?
From a little into 92, early 93 till 97-ish,
All right, so in 97, you would have been about 6 years old.
somewhere in there.
All right, what happened when you were 6 years old to this house?
My mother tried to burn the house down that failed because she didn't know what she was doing in the beginning.
All right, explain.
If there's no air, it smothers out, and she had everything closed up in the beginning. So just the kitchen, living room area burnt.
All right, and your mother set that on fire?
She had my father set it on fire. It was her plan, and she's the one who taught my father how to do it.
All right, and you remember this when you were 6 or 7 years
Yes.
old? And what did you think about that when you were a kid?
Really had no input on it.
Okay, so she tried to burn it, but it didn't completely burn, is that what you're saying?
And my grandmother paid to remodel it because my mother told her it was an accidental fire.
Your mother told your grandmother.
It is support with Steffa. Hey, babe, good to see ya.
Which grandmother do we need?
Frederica.
And that's your grandma Wagner?
Yes.
Lives on the building?
Yes.
Okay. So she lied to her so she could get it rebuilt?
The inside redone with new sheetrock.
Okay. And so is that when you say it morphed into a second house?
Then they added another single wide to it and made it kind of like a giant hill.
Okay. And was that in the same location or
Yes.
was it moved?
It was just added on in the same location.
All right. And how long did you live there approximately?
Roughly 2000 before they burnt that one.
All right. In 2000, you were about 9 years old?
Roughly.
All right. And what do you mean they burned that?
They burned that one down and succeeded with that one.
Who's dead?
My father and my mother.
And how did they burn it?
Same method as always. A whole bunch of newspapers stuck underneath the fuse box.
And so where would you live after it burned?
Uh,
Oh boy. Hold on a second. Let me see what's happening here. Oh, okay.
After that one burned,
Must be a ton of people
my
watching.
grandmother bought my mom and dad a new single wide house trailer.
And where was that placed?
The same spot it was.
On Bethel Hill?
Yes.
All right. So at this point in time, when you're 9 years old approximately, your first two homes have been burned by your mom and dad?
Yes.
What happened with this home that you got now?
Stayed in it for about a year before my father extended the driveway and moved it back another half mile.
All right, talk about that for a minute. From Bethel Hill Road back to where your first home was.
Half.
There's a lot of people watching. Oh no, is it me? Oh, come on.
A mile.
Half a mile. All right. And then when you got this other home after two fires, where was that placed?
Half a mile further back, made the driveway a mile.
All right, so he extended the driveway back up Bethel Hill,
Yes.
up the hill, I should say.
Yes.
And so that was the location for your third home.
Yes. Well, it started with the trailer, and then that trailer got morphed,
They got it. What do you mean by that?
added on to.
All right, explain that.
My father and mother eventually added sides down each side of it and more rooms and turned it into one giant wonder mansion. I called it a Kentucky Wonder Mansion.
All right, describe it the best you can.
If you're looking at what would have been referred to as the front of it, there's a 12-foot wide by 80-foot long add-on room down one side, and then a 10-foot wide by 80-foot down the other side.
All right, so this was a very large home.
Yes,
And did you have your own bedroom there?
yes.
And describe that if you could.
It sat on, would be the left side of the house looking at the front of it, and it was 10 by 80, or sorry, 10 by 30.
10 by 30.
Yes,
And did you have your own exit door, or how did that work?
yes. I have my own exit door, my own mudroom, my own everything.
Okay, so it was almost like an apartment?
Kind of excluding the bathroom and kitchen thing.
Okay. And did you like living?
I liked having my own exit door. I could leave any time of day or night that I wanted without anybody knowing I left.
Oh, you're okay?
Many
Okay.
times.
It was a little laggy for me for a sec.
Leave in the middle of the night, go hunting, fishing. Then when I got older, I'd leave in the middle of the night in my truck.
So how old were you when you moved into the Kentucky Wonder Ranch? About.
When it was finished,
Yeah, when it was finished.
it was finished around early 05, I believe it was finished.
05?
Late 04, 05,
Okay, so you're about 14 years old or so
when it was finished.
when it was finished.
It was a work in progress.
Okay. And describe the inside of your bed.
Mainly all of my hunting and fishing stuff.
What do you mean by that?
All my deer heads, all my guns, ammunition, all my fishing poles. I stored it all in there.
And what were your fishing habits or hunting habits at that time?
Almost all day, every day.
What do you mean by that?
I would leave at that point in time, my mother ran a dog breeding business,
Okay.
and she expected me and my brother to put in 8 and 10-hour days and basically not get paid for it.
Okay.
So every time she'd turn her back, I'd be gone.
Where would you go?
Four-wheeler all over me, paperwood, my grandparents, or hunting fish. And
And how long would you be gone?
sometimes all day, sometimes till the next morning,
So what would you do while you were gone?
hunting fish and four-wheel.
Did
Basically,
you do that with anybody else?
Sometimes with my Uncle Chris, sometimes with my friend Garrett. Just depend on who was available.
Or would you ever do it alone?
A lot of times.
And what would you do when you were alone? Describe a typical hunting day.
Go sit in the woods somewhere.
Right there on Bethel Hill?
Bethel Hill, the other side of the road, which is the Flying W, Mead Paperwood,
What's meat paper?
like a logging company that regrows trees.
All right, is that nearby?
It connects to my grandparents.
It connects to the Flying W?
Yes,
So you spent time there too?
yes. And all the neighboring farms, I had access to all of them.
And so, what did your mom think of that?
She'd always throw a fit for me leaving my brother,
What do you mean, Phil?
that I was letting him do all the work and not staying home and do it.
And describe the work that you were doing that she wanted you to do at that time.
At that time, it was take care of the garden and take care of all the dogs,
How many dogs did she have?
somewhere between 80 and 100.
So what would be your responsibility?
Feed and water them, clean the pens, help her take pictures of them, move them from pen to pen. When you're breeding dogs, you got to move this male to that female back and forth, and it's a royal pain.
So you didn't really like that?
No.
Do I understand correctly that you were gone as much as you could be at that time?
As much as I was possibly able to.
And was your brother the same way?
No, he stayed and worked all day when my mom told him to.
And so your mom's dog breeding business, tell us about that.
How far back do you want me to go?
Well, let's start at the beginning.
In the beginning, they raised English bulldogs and Labrador retrievers.
Okay, and how would that work? Or
They did
explain how
that
it worked.
on the when we lived at the half-mile point.
Okay,
And in other words, the same as she's always done, she runs ads for them. But back then, there was no Facebook and Craigslist and stuff, so it was all normal newspaper advertising.
okay. And did she sell a lot of dogs?
Lots of them,
Made money at it?
a lot.
Right. And what type of dogs did you sell?
At that point, English bulldogs and Labrador retrievers.
So purebred.
Yes,
Were they always purebred?
she would. We'll start with the labs. The English bulldogs were legit because it's hard to find something that looks like them. But the labs, if one of the females had 8 pups, she would go to the pound and get 4 or 5 more that looked like them. And if she sold the 8, she'd just say she didn't sell the 8, and then she'd resell the ones that she got from the pound that may or may not be a lab. Occasionally, if it had a white spot on a black dog that looked identical to a lab, she'd just dye the hair.
She would do what?
She would dye the hair so it would turn it black and you wouldn't know it had a white spot on it.
All right. So she represented that these were purebreds when she got them from the pound.
Yes.
Did this happen a lot?
I'm sorry, I have to interject here. This makes me very, very upset for a number of reasons. First of all, I have always had labs my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but like it was hounds when I was little. And then when I was 16, my mom and dad got our first lab. And so from then on, I've always had labs. And it really breaks my heart to hear stories like this, especially backyard breeders. Like it sounds like, Angela Wagner was, because it just makes me sick. And I can't even. I had something to say, but it's not going to be like nice or really productive. So there's really no point. I don't even know why I stopped. Here we go.
A couple 100 times probably.
Just makes me mad.
And so that was when you lived at the half-mile point.
Yes.
Did the dog breeding business move down the road when you got to the mile point?
Yes.
Explain that.
At that point, she started raising Yorkies, Maltese, and Labradoodles.
All right. And about how many dogs?
Somewhere around 80 or 100.
A lot of work.
Yes. She had 4 buildings stuffed full of them.
And so was that a legitimate business as far as the purebred dogs go?
She still done the same thing with saying one dog would say it had 8. She would go get stuff that looked like it from the pound and sell more, saying she just hadn't sold them.
So that was kind of a fraudulent activity.
Yes.
And how long did the dog business go on?
Until it burned.
What happened?
We came home from Columbus one night, late at night, and it was laying in ashes.
What was like?
All 4 dog kennels,
And how many dogs?
close to 100.
And did you ever find out how that dog kennel burned?
No. To my knowledge, nobody did.
Did she continue the dog business after that tragedy?
A few years later, she started again.
Were you still on Bethel Hill?
Yes.
Explain this.
I had a female beagle, and one day she drug a male in, and she started, I just saved one pup after another, just because I like my rabbit dogs,
Okay.
and my mother started selling the pups out of them.
Did she represent they were purebreds?
She said they were purebred pocket beagles, which is really no such thing.
Yeah, we know. But let me
You
just
had
say
your own
this.
pet beagle.
Yes.
Do you have a name?
This whole family is like the
Right.
fireflies from the Devil's
How did you
Rejects.
come
I
about
still, ugh.
My female drug him in.
I'm sorry?
He followed my female home one day.
All right, so he was kind of a stray,
Yes. An ill-tempered stray.
ill-tempered stray. Tell us about Rover, just briefly.
It took me like 3 days to catch him. I ended up catching him in a coon trap.
Okay,
And then I put him on a dog box and couldn't find his owner. And one day he dug up a yellow jacket's nest and about killed himself.
what happened?
They stung him into a coma.
Okay, and what happened then?
I nursed him back to health, and after that he was stuck to my side everywhere I went.
What do you mean everywhere you went?
If I went deer hunting, he'd lay at the bottom of the deer stand until I was ready to leave. If I went fishing, he'd sit right beside me.
So he was your companion,
He
basically.
followed me everywhere.
And about what age did you get Rover?
I was 15, I think.
All right, and how long did he live?
He lived until he got eaten.
So he got eaten?
Yes.
What happened?
He was ill-tempered, and when all my other rabbit dogs would run out of the fields, when the coyotes would let loose, he'd run into the field.
All right, and so,
I ended up taking him to the vet 4 times to get him stitched, and the 5th time he didn't come back.
so what do you think happened to him?
I think he got eaten
By, all
by coyotes.
right, you had coyotes on the farm?
I never seen him again after that.
Did you have coyotes on the farm?
Many.
Explain that.
My grandmother won't let nobody shoot him.
Your grandmother won't?
Won't let nobody shoot him.
So there are quite a few?
So they've multiplied.
talked about your mom's involvement with the arson so far. Now, once you got back, you're in the Kentucky Wonder Mansion, right?
Yes.
And about how long did you live there?
In the back or in the Wonder Mansion?
In the Wonder Mansion.
It burned in late '07, early '08, I think.
Right, so at that time, you were about 16 or 17?
Yes.
And what happened there?
We had come back from Alaska and intended on moving back up there, so my mom and dad burned it.
All right. Stop for a moment. You came back from Alaska.
Yes.
What were the circumstances that took you up to Alaska?
My friends from Memphis had moved up there, and we went up there on a vacation with them.
All right. Are you talking about the Cinereskis?
Yes.
That testified earlier?
Yes.
All right. You knew them when you were growing up here in Ohio?
Yes.
All right. And so, do I understand you correctly that your family took a vacation to Alaska when you were 16 or 17?
August of '07.
August of '07. Describe that vacation.
We flew to Alaska. My grandmother Rita and my uncle Chris watched our house for us, and we spent a week in Alaska.
How did you like that?
I didn't want to come home.
Why is that?
I love the outdoors, and Alaska is the most beautiful place there is. So,
But your family did come back.
yes, after they pretty much drugged me on the plane.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
you were still living in the Kentucky Wonder Mansion at that time.
Yes.
And what happened with that?
My mom and dad burned it to get some money to move to Alaska.
All right. And so they did burn.
Yes.
And what happened with the money? Or what happened?
After they burned it, my dad decided he didn't want to leave the farm.
Okay, so what happened?
They rebuilt there.
All right, so you built a new place.
Yes.
Was this a mobile home?
No.
Describe this new place.
It was 40 by 56 with a 40 by 40 basement under it.
All right, and who actually built it?
The main structure frame of it was built by Pine Top Construction.
And what did they actually do?
They framed it and put the roof on it.
All right, did you have somebody else pour a basement?
Yes.
Concrete basement?
Yes.
Did you have any involvement in building the interior of the house?
The rest of the structure we finished.
Who's we?
My brother, my mom, and I.
Explain how that works.
My mother sat around playing foreman, and me and my brother did all the work on it.
What type of work did you actually do?
Put the wiring in. put the
That does
insulation
not
in, all the
sound
flooring,
up to
walls,
code.
and Trim.
All right, and what was the basement like?
It wasn't finished. It was just concrete.
All right. How many rooms did you have in the house? Just describe it for us if you could.
My brother's bedroom, my bedroom, the mudroom, the living room, the kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and then the master bedroom, and then the basement.
Was this a 2-story or 1-story?
1 story above ground,
1 story above ground in the
1
basement.
under.
What was the basement like?
The main section of the basement was used for storage, basically.
All right,
And then the extra room on the side of it, my father and Chris Sr. had added in the beginning of the plans.
all right, and what was that room used for?
It was used for growing marijuana.
Explain that.
Oh
It was
dear.
10 foot wide by 40 foot long.
All right, and were you ever in that room?
No.
Why not?
I don't agree with drugs.
Would you help with the growing of that marijuana?
Wait a minute. Hold on a
Did
minute.
your father ever,
What does that even mean? I don't agree with drugs. You argue with drugs? You object to drugs? You mean you don't agree with the use of drugs? Is that what you mean, George? Jesus, I can't.
grow marijuana elsewhere, or was this his first adventure into it, or
To my knowledge, once in the field.
once in the field?
Yes.
Explain that.
When I was hanging out with Sean and Nathan, Walls, in case you need that for the record, my father had planted like a whole field full of it
Where did he plant?
in the pine trees.
On the Bethel Hill property?
Yes,
All right. Was that successful?
would have been.
It would have been.
Yes.
What happened?
My grandmother hired a company from Georgia, I believe it was, to trim the limbs on the pine trees. And they were coming in middle of July to trim them.
And so what happened?
My father ended up having to cut the stuff early.
Now, was there ever a time when,
For something you don't agree with so much, you know so much, you certainly know quite a bit about it,
explain what happened?
Mr. George Washington Wagner
From
the
the
fourth.
beginning, or how they
From
came
the
about.
From the beginning.
From the beginning, my father. and
George, he's
other
going to
people
want you
that
to
he
explain
drove
everything
with
from the
had
beginning,
two
okay?
choices,
Just keep
basically.
that in your
You're either gonna
mind.
take a load of diapers or a load of Rocky boots. Who actually hooked the trailer, I can't say. I was not there. I don't know who hooked it. But the plan was either the diapers or the boots. My mother was pushing for the diapers, and my father and his friends all wanted the boots. So my mother sided with them, and they went with the boots.
Okay, so what happened?
Then the boots showed up, and my dad's friends and their family, my dad, my brother, and I, and my mom unloaded the trailer.
What do you mean the trailer showed up?
53102 semi-trailer,
Where did it show up?
Bethel Hill.
All right, so someone brought a huge trailer?
Yeah.
And
I don't
what-
know if it was my dad that pulled it or if it was one of his friends. The trailer was just sitting there in the morning.
All right, and so what happened next?
We unloaded it. It got divided 3 ways, and then they hauled the trailer out while everybody hauled their boots to whoever's house they were going to.
And how many boots are we talking about?
53102 load, thousands.
Thousands of boots.
Yes,
And your mom was involved in that?
yes. She helped plan it.
She helped plan it?
Yes.
And so did you guys get some of the boots?
Everybody in Pike County was wearing Rocky boots at that point.
But where would you keep the boots
In the basement,
of this new house?
yes.
Are you aware of any other thefts, like between 2005, 2014, that your mom or dad or family was involved?
How many do you want me to go into? 'Cause I can go for days.
All of them. Hell, go ahead.
You know anything about hot tub?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
My father, and I don't know who hooked it, but him and his friends stole a load of hot tubs.
So hot tub,
Yes.
a trailer full of hot tubs? Is that what you mean?
A trailer load of hot tubs.
All right, and where did that come about? Where did you know about that?
It came from right outside of Waverly here at the old Plateau truck stop.
All right, and
I don't
where
know,
did
in
the trailer
5,
go?
6,
Did it
7,
end up
8.
on Bethel Hill?
It was unloaded outside of Waverly.
Where outside? Where?
I don't remember the name of the road. It's down by Ricer's Equipment.
Were you there?
No.
All right. Did you get a hot tub out of it?
We got a hot tub out of it, and then the remainder after they were split between whoever was with my dad that got them. My dad shared, my mom, my dad, my brother, and me went around selling hot tubs to everybody.
Were there other types of thefts that your family was involved
Many.
in? Pick one and tell us about it.
A load of Dell laptops.
Tell us about that.
That came from, don't remember the name of the truck stop. It's halfway between Winchester and Eastgate, Cincinnati. It's on the left down there. There's a little restaurant and a truck stop.
All right, what happened there?
It was not really a whole load. We just opened it and emptied it. It was me, my mom, my dad, and brother.
About how old were you at that point?
This would have been around 06.
Was there, did your dad ever tell you something about a pension plan he had?
My father used to say that he buried money across the U.S. in different spots.
What do you mean by that?
When he'd get big loads of stuff that he would take and haul it to Mexico and sell, he would take the money and bury it.
Where would he bury it?
Can't say that. I just know somewhere between here and Texas.
That's what he told
He
you?
said multiple places.
And so if I understand you, he would take a load of what?
Copper, aluminum, zinc.
And he would come back?
Yes.
What would he come back with?
Brown paper bags full of money.
How much money?
Anywhere between 100 and 200,000, depending on what the price of scrap was at that time.
And how do you know that?
Because my brother and I would count it.
That was your job,
Yes.
to count that money?
Yes.
And how old were you at this point?
It's again around 06,
06, so you were 15 or so?
15, 16, with
Okay.
15, yeah. I think I just turned 15. And my father missed Christmas that year taking a load down there.
And how often did that happen to you?
I think that happened 4 different occasions. If I remember correctly, there's 2 loads of copper, a load of zinc, and a load of aluminum.
Telling y'all, they were a whole
Take morning break
enterprise.
At this time, it might be a good time, or if you want me to go on.
Well, if it's a good time to break, we do usually take about a 15-minute break at this time, so, and the jury's getting a while. We will break for 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. at about 20 minutes till 11, if you'll assemble in the jury room, will be brought back up.
All right, bye. All right, we're just gonna wait. They're gonna start back up in like 6 minutes. So, holy guacamole. Let's talk about it. All right, first and foremost, let me just get this out of the way. Who could have imagined that the defense would start out technically it's not really their day one, because obviously they put a couple of witnesses on the stand prior, due to scheduling conflicts. Okay. No, I'm in live chat. Why? I'm in live chat. Let me just make sure. I'm also watching chat on the computer, so that doesn't StreamYard doesn't have that. It's either you just can see the chat, period. Okay. So now, who thought they were going to come straight out the gate with George Washington Wagner the Fourth? Okay, babe. Not me. Now, did I think that there was going to be that he might potentially testify? Yeah, because but I'm actually okay, there's always a potential, right? But I have to say, honestly, I'm very, very surprised that they're doing this. And the reason that I'm surprised is when a person takes the stand, regardless, but it's even more, the stakes are higher, obviously, if it's the defendant themselves who testifies in their own defense, because obviously the state is going to get a chance to cross examine them. And that can be very, very problematic because I'm obviously, you can prep your client as much as you want to, till you're confident that you think that they're going to be good on the stand, but you never can know for sure what a prosecutor is going to throw at them on cross. And inadvertently, your client could admit to something that you definitely do not want them to, you know, admit to, right? So that's risky. However, I still think that this was allowed. Okay, so do I think the potential was always there? Well, obviously, right? But what made them do it? Well, this is what I think, quite honestly. I think that the defense really changed course after those 2018 intercept wiretaps came out, because those were damning. They definitely showed that there was a cahooting going on. And in my opinion, it's obviously there was no overt, direct admission of guilt on those intercepts, right? But what there was that argument. And the argument about and George saying to Jake, "Man, my life was going swimmingly, and you ruined it." Absolutely. I mean, why would Jake be ruining any life? Do you know what I mean? If he didn't know about this plan, as he contends, as his defense attorneys contend, he wasn't part of it. He had no idea about it, right? And he was distancing himself. If you're truly distancing yourself, the minute they started, the law enforcement started sniffing around, and there started to become a level of heat on this family. If I didn't have anything to do with it, I would be literally physically distancing myself from my family. I don't give a rat's fat kneecap. I just, that argument in in the cab of the semi that they were driving together, that was, of all of the things that that the state has put on, that is probably one of the most damning, in my opinion, pieces of evidence. And let's be honest, we watched their blood expert. And to be quite honest with you, his testimony fell flat. It did not have the desired impact, in my opinion. If it didn't have it on me, and I'd be looking for loopholes, y'all. I'm always on the lookout for reasonable doubt, because I try to figure out what the jury is going to do, and if there's reasonable doubt, yada yada yada. That's the point of this whole streaming business, with doing the trials. So yeah, honestly, oh my gosh, Jen, if you're going to fast forward, then you have to push play. All right. Hopefully that did it. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I am completely floored that they thought this was going to be a good idea. I know that they have. I think this was I think this was a plan of last resort, to be quite honest with you. They have got to get, they have got to have the jury have a different impression of George other than what was on those tapes. I think, to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what Angela said, obviously, and I don't know what, I only know like about 10 minutes of what Jake Wagner testified to, but frankly, um, I, I honestly think that the wiretaps, those recordings, I think those were potentially in from my perspective anyway, more damaging to George's case than Jake and Angela testifying. And the reason I say that is because if I were on a jury and, hey, faraway ice. Oh yeah, shoot, I have 3 streams for today. I have this one that we're watching now, then I've got this day 2 of Brooks, and then we're gonna talk about this tonight, because I have to talk about this testimony. It's mind-boggling to me that they did this. So anyway, um, it's about to it's about to be, too much Jen Lu. Today is too much Jen Lu day. Um, anyway, so I think that the defense is like, man, we've got to get George on the stand. We have got to get the jury to have a different impression of him, because, like I said, those wiretaps, I think, may have been more damaging in the jury's eyes than Angela and Jake. Because if I were on a jury, all right, I would, of course, listen to Jake and Angela's testimony, and I would hear what they had to say, and I would evaluate it. But the problem is, is that they took plea deals. And so that the defense is going to come at them hard, especially about those plea deals. Okay. And so that might take a little wind out of the sails of their testimony. You know, that it does, when somebody is testifying because they've taken a plea deal, then they have a motive for being less than honest. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. That's early for you, babe. Whew. I'm tired of Jen Lu, and I live with her in my own body. I get tired of my voice. So, like, excuse me. Um, if I'm on the jury, the fact that they got a plea deal is problematic, because I then they have an incentive again to be less than honest, especially when the plea deal includes the phrase testify to the state's satisfaction. See, that's problematic. I don't that's an issue for me. You know what I mean? And I think it's probably going to be an issue for the jury. And I think that but those wiretaps, it's very difficult for without George's testimony, without the jury hearing George himself in person, those wiretaps and what was played on them is going to be difficult to come back from, because you have a defendant who, let's be honest, I have to give credit where credit is due. And it's not really I'm not like, um, I'm just, I don't know what the right word for it is. It'll come to me after I start describing it. George Wagner has been able to sit in that courtroom expressionless, blank. Arresting bitch face is much different than a blank expression, and he had a blank expression. There are the moments of him having any level of reaction were few and far between, and they were um, brief. And if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't have caught them. So if you weren't specifically looking at him, and to be also to be fair, um, a lot of it for us watching would be dependent on what the camera person was showing. However, I will give props to the person operating the camera, because they did pan over and zoom in on George at appropriate times to see if there would be a reaction. And he was able to maintain his composure, including when his ex-wife testified, Tabby, and when Jake's ex-wife, Beth Ann, testified, because she had some not so good things to say about George and the Wagner family as a whole, but really George, that she basically called him misogynistic, that he had a poor opinion of women. He expressed that opinion of that he had of women loudly and frequently, and she was not a fan. And it's evident that George was not a fan of hers either, especially in that argument between he and Jake in the cab of that semi, because I didn't. George was mad that Jake brought in an outsider when they had all this pressure going on. They knew that they were being investigated when they were on vacation in Alaska in 2017 or 2016. Yeah, because they went the summer. Was it the summer? No, no. Hold on, let me think about this. They Yeah. So the summer of 2017, because they had sold um, they had gone on vacation, and then they sold the property, and they were informed by the new property owners, hey, the Popos is out here and they're digging around and looking around, right? Yeah, because it had been 10 months. So there you go. That's right. So they left in 20, shit, yeah, 2017. Anyway, um, he was mad about it. He knew that the BCI was investigating them. The law enforcement was putting a lot of heat on them, and George knew it, and he didn't think that, he was pissed. And I mean, to some extent, I probably would be pissed too. Of course, I wouldn't be involved in a plot to unalive 8 human beings either, but that's, I sort of can understand why. I can understand George's frustration with Jake at that point. I can. I'm not, whatever, not condoning his actions. I just understand why he was angry. And um, those were damning. I think they're about to come back because the camera shook, or else somebody bumped it. Who knows? But yeah, like the jury has to see George differently, and the only way for him to be seen differently is to be on the stand, because even the audio was not arguing anybody, just conversation happening. It doesn't sound like he's listening to himself, and and the whole thing about, when we first, the very first time we ever went to Alaska, I fell in love with the place. That is a very attempt at explaining away why we went to Alaska the second time. But why did you come back from Alaska, George? That would have been your perfect opportunity to put the home was in your name. The rental agreement was in your name. You could have stayed and you didn't. That would have been your out. Pretty much. I agree. I agree. Talking about the insurance fraud, you know. And just to keep you apprised of the schedule of Jen Lu, I think what I'm going to do is I will stream for another like 30 minutes till 11:30. And I know that's disappointing. I would like to sit here and cover this and watch this whole testimony with you guys. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that George is going to be under direct testimony the majority of the day today. And then cross-examination possibly tomorrow. Excuse me, Your
Yes,
Honor,
counsel
let
may
me
resume questioning the witness.
just turn you down just briefly. But because I have a few things that I have to get done before we finish with the Brooks sentencing.
About when you're growing up on Bethel, okay? You're familiar with the large lake on the Flying W farm, right?
Yes,
That's where the goose box
Mainly
was?
eating. My stomach is
Talk
eating a hole
about that.
in my
lake,
back,
that
just
lake,
FYI.
All right. Are you familiar with something called Crystal Springs?
yes,
Are you familiar with something called the Mission?
yes.
What are those two things and where are they located?
Crystal Springs is the group home of my grandmother's. It's located on the hill just above the lake. And the Mission is the church that she used to run. It started out in Lucasville when her and my grandfather got too old to run it. They moved it to the farm.
Okay, and so that's actually on the Flying W farm?
Now it is.
Now it is. Both of them.
Technically, it's deeded on a separate deed, but it belongs to them.
Okay. And that's kind of at the top of the hill where the lake is?
Yes. It's just beside the group home.
And what is the group home as far as you know?
My grandmother runs a home for MRDD. MRDD.
MRDD, do you know what that stands for?
Not really.
Okay. Do you know the type of people that live there?
Basically, adults that are still children in their own brain.
Okay. Now, I think you told us that you quit your schooling that your mom was giving you around the age of 14.
Around there.
Okay. Did you get a diploma?
Yes.
You need to keep your voice up a little bit. Sorry, pull before you can. Thank you. So you stopped your schooling around the age of 14?
Yes.
All right. But you got a diploma, is that right?
Yes.
How did that work?
My mother didn't want me getting a GED like my father or her brother, so I ended up, she finished the schooling.
Your mother finished.
She done the test for it.
Okay, but you got the diploma.
Yes.
Now, around this age, was your father, did he have like a real job outside the home?
Early teens or
Yeah.
before teens or
Okay, let's start when you were very young.
when I was young, he worked for my grandparents and went around buying horses, junk, cattle, whatever kind of livestock he could get.
Okay, and as you got older, did he do something else?
After the dog kennels burned, the last one, my father started driving the truck.
All right, and what do you mean he started driving the truck?
He went and got his CDL, and a friend of his hired him to drive one of his trucks.
All right, and what type of truck driving did he do?
He hauled containers for BT&T out of Columbus.
And did Did you notice any changes in your father after he started driving truck?
Yes.
Explain that.
My father has a habit of wanting to be identical to whoever he takes as a father figure at the time.
What do you mean by that?
He has daddy issues.
Okay. And so when he started driving truck, did you notice a change?
Yes.
What did you notice?
The guy he was driving with took multiple different things to stay awake, and my father couldn't keep up with him, so he started doing the same thing.
What do you mean he started doing the same thing?
He would take what the guy he was driving with was taking.
Like taking,
Multiple handfuls of Atipex and pain pills.
I'm not gonna object and ask Mr. Parker to establish a foundation for help. George, was that?
did you ever see your dad take any pills?
Yes,
How would you see that?
because usually before he would leave, he would take a handful.
And did you notice any changes in his behavior?
It made him very irritable, hard to be around.
Did that cause any problems in your relationship with him?
A lot.
Explain that. If you can.
Didn't matter the least. My father is hard of hearing, and when he's not paying attention, you gotta holler at him, and he would, instead of thinking you were just trying to get his attention, he'd think you were yelling at him, and it would end up in an argument or a fight.
How would you describe your relationship with him once he started driving truck and taking these pills?
Not very well.
Can you give us some examples?
We quit doing stuff together, and I didn't spend a lot of time with him because he was always irritable.
Did you ever have any fights with him?
4 that I can remember in my life.
All right. Do you remember the first one?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I was 16, I believe.
All right, what happened?
My brother ran me over with my own truck when he was trying to hook up a trailer, and I was yelling at my brother, and for some reason my father went off on me.
All right, you said your brother ran you over. Was that on purpose or an accident?
He was not paying attention.
Were you injured?
Not really, just a little black and blue.
All right, and so what happened?
My father thought I was just yelling at my brother for no reason and pushed me up against my truck and dared me to hit him.
Okay, and you were 16?
Yes.
And so what happened?
I was just fed up with it, so I hit him.
What do you mean you hit him?
I hauled off and hit him.
With your fist?
Yes.
And what happened then?
He hit the ground, and he got back up, and we went into a fist fight.
And how long did that last?
A few minutes until my mother broke it up.
How did she break it?
I don't remember exactly. I just remember her screaming and yelling at both of us.
And so, did that first fist fight affect your relationship with your dad?
We didn't speak for a few weeks after that.
And so, were there other instances or other times when you got into a fight with your dad?
Yes, three more I remember. 2 more fist fights and one that was just like a massive verbal argument.
All right, but when was the next incident that you can remember?
The next one would have been a verbal argument
All right, where did that take place?
on Bethel Hill.
All right, what were the circumstances?
Can't really remember. We just got angry with each other and started yelling and cussing at each other.
And was there an incident after that?
Another fist fight.
Yeah, tell us about that.
He was basically insulting me and said that I wouldn't hit him. So
How was the insult?
he called me dumb, say I wouldn't listen, call me ignorant all the time
And how old were you about?
in my late teens.
And so what happened next?
I hit him again.
Did he hit your back?
Yes.
What happened?
We got into another fist fight for 4 or 5 minutes until it ended.
Was there any, did that affect your relationship?
Another 3 or 4 weeks of no talking to each other.
Was there a third fist fight?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
The last one took place at my grandmother's.
At your grandmother Wagner?
Yes.
So that's over at the Flying W?
Yes.
About how old were you?
It was in 2016, I believe, early 2016.
All right, so you would have been, all right, go on.
You want to know how it started, or?
Yeah, tell us how it started.
I was moving the remainder of our stuff from Bethel Hill to 260 Peterson, and the guy that leases it to deer hunt was accusing me of doing things, and me and him didn't get along, and he was basically saying he was going to try and prosecute me for trespassing on my grandparents' farm.
Okay. So
Yes,
what
George, we want you to
I
mention
went
it
to my
all.
grandmother and was trying to get her, telling him he's only got it to deer hunt on. I'm allowed to be on the farm. And my father went off saying I was going to cause problems and cause her not to get the lease.
All right, and so what developed or what happened?
I was leaving anyways, and my father busted the window out of the passenger side of the truck and shattered me with glass and slung my AR across the yard. And then I got mad, and me and my father went to fighting.
Let's break that down. So this was before you moved to Peterson?
I'd already moved there.
You'd already moved to Peterson?
Yes, I was just removing it took us a couple of years to get all of our stuff off of Bethel.
Okay, so you were moving stuff from Bethel over to
Yeah.
Peterson?
Yes.
And what happened to after you left Bethel Hill, what happened to that property?
My grandmother leased it for people to deer hunt on.
And so are you saying there was some sort of disagreement with you and the person that was leasing it?
Yes.
All right, and so what did you do?
I was trying to get my grandmother to basically tell him that he's only got it for deer hunting, that I can still go in there and get my stuff.
All right. And where did this conversation take place?
With my grandmother, I didn't
Yeah.
get to the conversation. That's what I was going to tell her.
Okay, so you were on your way to that
Yes,
conversation?
and I didn't get past barn one.
Barn one on the Flying W?
Yes.
And so, tell us about that conversation.
My father asked what I was doing up there, and I explained to him I wanted her to do something about it. And he said that I would just end up causing problems, and the guy wouldn't be leasing the farm no more, and not to cost my grandmother that amount of money.
All right. And so what happened next?
Then I got upset and said I didn't need her. I'd just go handle it myself. And my father got upset, and while I was leaving, and broke the passenger side window out of the truck and shattered me in glass.
How did he do that?
He punched the window.
And then what happened?
Then my AR I always kept on my dash. He grabbed it and threw it across the yard into the dog pen.
What's an AR?
It's an AR-15.
That's a gun?
Yes.
All right. Did you carry that in your truck?
That and multiple others.
Okay. And so he broke out the passenger side window and grabbed your gun that was on the dash,
Yes.
did you say?
Every time I go to the Flying W, I always put one of my rifles on my dash in case I see a deer or something.
Okay. And so what happened after he threw your AR?
I got upset because he just threw my AR that I just recently bought a few months prior, and me and my father went to another fist fight.
And what happened then?
Not to really go into a lot of detail, but my father lost.
So did that affect your relationship?
Yes, we went over 2 months without speaking, I want to say.
And this was when you're living over on Peterson?
Yes.
Was your dad living with you when you moved over to Peterson?
No. No.
Explain his living situation
He stayed with my grandparents.
on the Flying W.
Yes.
Do you know why?
Multiple reasons. One, he couldn't stand being around my mother anymore, and two, my grandfather was bedridden. He couldn't get out of bed.
His father,
Yes.
your grandfather.
And there was nobody, if he fell out of the bed in the middle of the night, there was nobody there to put him back in it.
So if I understand you correctly, your father was spending a lot of time at the Flying W helping with his father's care,
Yes.
and kind of also at the same time, what was the relationship between him and your mother?
It basically went to, they might as well just called it friends after a divorce, even though they weren't divorced.
Would he come over to Peterson Road,
Yes, to visit the kids, my son and my niece,
your son and your niece? And what's your niece's name?
Sophie.
That's Jake's kid.
Yes.
But was there ever a time in one of these fights where a rope was used?
The last one.
Explain what happened.
For some reason, my father thought he was going to rope me and tie me up, and it backfired on him.
What happened?
I jerked him off his feet and commenced to hit my father.
Did he throw a rope at you?
More like a lariat.
A lariat? Explain what happened.
He tried to, I'm assuming, that's all I can say to assume, is he just tried to rope me and tie me up with it. And it backfired, and it just ended up tightening around my neck.
And what'd you
Hey,
do?
Mark
I
Klein.
jerked him off his feet with it.
All right, and that's when the fight took place?
Yes.
Now, over on Bethel Hill, did there come a point in time when,
I don't know too much about the pew pews, but
You met
that does
Pat.
seem like
Yeah.
a little bit extra
affected you?
for hunting,
Yes, she
right?
all right, that's your ex-wife?
Yes.
All right, explain the circumstances on how you met Tad.
My aunt set it up,
All right, and who was your aunt?
Robin Wagner.
And is that your dad's sister?
Yes.
And where does she live?
The Flying W. Has her whole life.
She's lived there her whole life.
Yes, aside from the trip to Arizona.
Okay. So explain how you met Tabby.
My aunt thought that her and her sisters were saints and thought it would be good to hook me and my brother up with them.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 12
And how old was Tabby?
and I just turned 11.
And did Tabby have a sister?
Yes,
What's her sister?
she actually has four sisters, I believe.
Okay, but there was a sister that Robin wanted Jake to meet? Or how
Ted-
did that work?
Again, I'm gonna object to Mr. Parker leading.
I can rephrase.
All right.
Explain
It's
the
interesting that you hold on. Let me turn this down a bit.
circumstances.
My aunt wanted me. and
It's
my brother
interesting
to
that you
have
say
a
that,
sister. It started out she wanted
Mark
me to meet
Klein,
Trish and my
because
brother.
George has the dead man's hand.
We met, we
tattooed
went
on
back
him.
The opposite direction.
So yeah, interesting that
Tabby ended up
you
going with me.
And what
bring
did
that
you do?
up.
Went fishing all day, rode the four-wheeler, and went back to my house.
You were how old?
12,
And she was?
11.
And explain how that relationship developed. Tell us what happened.
About the same thing we did every weekend for about 3 weeks. And then she started staying at my house with us, her and her sister.
Her and her sister Trish?
Yes,
And where was that?
Bethel Hill.
What do you mean she started staying?
They'd stay a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, till their mom would come get them.
And what was her mom's name?
Tess,
And did you know Tess?
fairly. She worked for my grandmother,
She worked for your grandmother. Where did she work?
Crystal Springs.
And so just describe how you were 12 and Tabby was 11. Describe how this friendship developed or whatever.
After a
Yeah,
few
crazy,
months
isn't it,
of
Mark?
them staying with us, Trish decided she didn't want to come anymore, and it was just Tabby. And at the beginning, Trish and Tabby would take my brother's bedroom at night, and me and my brother would sleep in mine. After Trish quit coming, then my brother wanted his room back, so my mom tried to make Tabby sleep on the couch, and I didn't want her on the couch, so I volunteered for the couch. And my mom wouldn't have none of that, so my dad just let Tabby sleep in the room with me.
And how old were you when that started?
I was maybe a month off of being 13.
And so Tabby was staying in your room. Was this every once in a while or how did this work?
For weeks at a time till her mom would come get her.
And how would you describe your relationship at that point?
At that point, me and Tabby was, you might as well say we were boyfriend and girlfriend at that point.
And what type of things would you and Tabby do together?
Hunt, fish, go mudding, pluck chickens.
What do you mean, talk to her?
When my father, I mentioned this earlier, would buy hundreds of them at that point, and we would butcher them ever so many times a year. And he'd usually send us out to shoot 10 or 15 at a time. Me and Tabby got overexcited. Ended up doing like 80 or 100 of them, somewhere in there, a lot.
Okay.
Now the gambler is going to be in my
I think
head.
You and Tabby had a lot in common.
Yes.
And did there come a time when you were no longer boyfriend?
Yes, after about a year, we broke up.
I'm going to mute before it has
Fine.
and sing it
And so what happened?
out loud, but not
I
where
was
y'all can
chasing
hear it
another
because
girl
I got to
around.
get it out of my head.
And eventually, as I understand it, you and Tabby got back together,
Yes, I would just turn 14, I think.
all right? And explain the circumstances there.
I wasn't getting nowhere with this other girl, so I got back with Tabby.
All right, how did that come about?
I ended up calling Tabby back,
All right,
and then we dated for another 4 or 5 months after that, and I broke up with her again to chase the same girl I was getting nowhere with.
okay. And how long did you and Tabby break up for at that time?
Until we got back together when she was 18 and I was 19 and a half.
So for several years you were apart,
Yes.
okay? And what were you doing in the meantime?
I don't think they let him have a pocket watch
Hunting,
at the
fishing with
jail,
my
Mark.
friends, drinking,
Otherwise, I
partying,
think he'd have
throughout-
one.
After I turned 16, running around being me.
Okay. And how was it that you and Tabby got back together?
I really, how much detail you want into this?
Well, was there an event that started it, or how did this work?
I was hanging out at Big Bear Lake with Frankie, and for some reason, Hannah likes to play matchmaker. And got
I
her
think the
talking to
name
me
of the
again.
show is
And now
just
at this point
the
in time-
dating game,
Were Hannah and Jake together?
if I remember right.
Describe that. How did they get together?
Um,
Just describe how that.
So like the first time Jake ever met Hannah, or
Yeah, when's the first time you know?
the Pike County Fair.
What happened there?
Hannah chased him around with a rabbit, wanting him to pet the rabbit.
All right. And describe the relationship. How old was Jake how old was he at that time?
17 and a half,
All right. And Hannah was how old, if you know? How much
13.
younger?
She was 13.
She was 13. So there's about 4.5 years difference between them?
4 3/4, I believe.
Okay. And so did Hannah move in? Describe the relationship.
Not
between
really.
Hannah and
After we left the fair that night, Jake went home. Me and Frankie went somewhere. I don't remember exactly where we went. And then when I came home later that night, Hannah was prank texting my brother.
Okay. And did Hannah know Tabby?
At that point, not
Yeah.
that I know of.
How did they meet?
Through Facebook, I believe. I can't be 100% on that.
So you were telling us how you and Tabby got back together.
Yes.
Blocked. I'm going to block you, Tony.
Hannah had got Tabby sending me messages again, and we talked for a little while, and I was at Big Bear Lake with Frankie, and we were all going to the Briar Patch after beer, and I stopped on the way back and picked Tabby up.
What do you mean you picked her up?
I picked her up at her house on my four-wheeler and took her back to the lake with us.
Had you seen her or been in touch with her in a while? Or?
Facebook messages now.
And so that was the rekindling of your relationship?
Yes.
Beer and four-wheeling.
You, at this point in time, did you know Hannah?
Reunited
Yes.
and it
How did you meet Hannah?
feels so
The
good.
very first time,
Yeah.
I helped her get a canoe out of the lake at Big Bear Lake.
And when was that? About how old were you?
I think I was 18.
Okay. And had she started dating Jake yet?
No.
So did you meet Hannah?
I met her probably 3-4 months before my brother did.
And how would you describe your relationship with Hannah at that point?
At that point, that's the only time I'd ever seen her.
I would never block you, Tony.
Yeah.
You know that.
Now,
I adore you.
we've heard a lot about Jake and Hannah's relationship. Describe your relationship with Hannah.
Yeah, let's hear
I looked
about
at Hannah
that.
as a baby sister.
What do you mean by that?
I'd
My
be
brother
lonely
might
without
be
you,
biologically
Tony.
my brother, but we never acted like brothers. Hannah acted like a baby sister to me, and my Uncle Chris acted like a brother to me.
Would you do things with Hannah?
We go fishing together, four-wheeling, fix Buckeyes during the holidays,
What do you mean
tell
fix
dirty jokes
Buckeyes?
back and forth, talk to each other about what was bothering each other.
All right, let's break that down. You said you fix Buckeyes?
Yes,
Explain.
all the holidays we would fix Buckeyes together.
Is that a food?
Yeah.
All right. Who would do that?
Me and Hannah,
You
What
two
are
did
Bu-
that.
yes.
Yeah,
would
what
that
are
be?
Buckeyes? Let me
Usually in
look
the
this
kitchen.
up.
Was she living at your house at the time?
Yes.
How else would you?
Or are
describe
they
your
the
relationship?
peas? Like black-eyed
We'd
peas?
sit around and tell dirty jokes and stuff, and I'd put beer and stuff in different containers so Jake wouldn't know she was drinking.
Okay, and what did Jake think of your relationship with him?
He, I don't think he really liked it. He always said I was too close to her.
And were you anything ever more than big brother, little sister?
No.
There's quite a bit, any age difference, is that right?
Oh, they're a nut.
Thinking 5.5 years, maybe 6.
But it says
And
Ohio
did you do other
Buckeye
activities?
fruits are not edible and can be
We'd sit around and
toxic.
tell dirty jokes with each other, and if Hannah was having an emotional day, she'd talk to me about it, or if I was having an emotional day, I'd talk to her about it.
And at this time, you're kind of a big fella, right?
They have to
Is
be
that something you
leached.
would ever talk to Hannah?
Huh. I don't
That's
even know
kinda
what
like
that
two-way street
means.
with us.
What do you mean by that?
She worried about her weight, and I worried about mine.
And so what would you do?
Sit there and talk to each other about what possible ability to lose weight.
All right. Let me see what else. Okay. Let me see what leaching is. Boiling, peeling, and soaking the nuts to remove tannins while preserving the nutritional content of the meat. There you go. That's leaching. Well, we've all learned something
So I want you
today.
to talk to the jury, to explain to the jury, I should say. Explain to the jury, like, what was your relationship with your brother when you were growing up on Bethel Hill?
Thank you,
How far back?
Corkies.
Well, let's start at the
Corky
beginning.
S. I don't know why I do that. Is it
In the beginning,
Corkies
we
or
were just
Corky
like
S?
normal kids.
Just gonna say Corky
Farm
from
chores
now on
together,
because
watch TV
I don't
together
wanna
and
mess
stuff
it
when
up.
was dark. That's starting out as like young kids.
Did there come a point in time when that kind of changed?
Yes.
Explain that.
When my mother had him paranoid that he was going to go to hell, and she kept beating into everybody's head, if you do anything, that you're making Jesus cry and you're going to end up going to hell.
What do you mean by that?
She would say that all the time. If you say one curse word or if you do anything that she thought was inappropriate,
What would she say?
that you're going down an entirely bad road, or you're making Jesus cry for this or that, or depending on the situation.
What was your reaction?
Interesting.
I really didn't have one. I did what I wanted to do.
Okay, thank
How
you.
about Jake?
Jake was always terrified of going to hell.
How would you
No,
describe
Boomer
Jake
is
compared to you?
Oklahoma.
At this point,
Yeah.
we are nothing alike.
And
Boomer
how would you describe
Sooners,
your
it's
relationship as you
Oklahoma.
went through your teen years, your early teen?
I spent as much time away from Jake as I possibly could.
Did you and him get along?
Maybe a couple of days out of a month or out of a week. We'd have a few good days. I'm not going to deny we had good days, but more bad days than good ones.
And what caused the bad days?
My brother is extremely rude and has no filter,
What do you mean by
and
that?
he thinks he's better than everybody.
What do you
Oh,
mean by that?
He goes to somebody's house and he thinks it's dirty. He's
And-
going to tell
and
them your house is
plotting
filthy.
to
He
unalive
thinks you
8
stink, he'll
people.
tell you to go take a shower. He has no filter.
Did that cause a problem?
Yes, he insults people, and a lot of my friends and stuff didn't like him being around.
Did that cause you problems?
Yes, because then they didn't want to hang out with me.
And how would you deal with Jake in these situations?
I would leave my brother behind 90% of the time.
Did you ever have arguments with him about this?
Many.
Explain that.
My brother thinks that he's a saint and can do no wrong and he's better than everybody, and he thinks that him being honest with people is what people wants to hear about his opinion of their self.
And did that cause a problem with your relationship with your mom?
Yes, my mother thinks that I should be like him. She's always said that.
What do you mean?
She thinks that he's a saint and does no wrong, and she thinks that I'm basically going to hell.
I know, only reason I know this, Tony, is because,
Your mom would tell you
hold
that?
on, let me
Yes,
just,
because I'm like her brother.
excuse me, George. The only reason I know this is because it's the Red River rivalry between, the Texas Longhorns, which is UT, and, Oklahoma, and that the Red River rivalry is the beginning of the Texas State Fair that the game is usually what kicks off the state fair. And obviously me being a Texan, I'll never, ever, 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 ever be a Boomer Sooner. I will always be hook 'em horns. All right, here we go.
Chris?
Yes.
Did she like you hanging around Chris?
No.
Why not?
She tried her best to keep Chris away from me.
And what was your reaction to
Yes,
that?
Corky,
I spent
nonstop
most
mom
of my
taught
time with
me
Chris.
this. She sure did.
How would you spend time with Chris if your mom didn't want you to?
Because he would come over and me and him would take off and go hunting and fishing.
And once you got your driver's license, did that change or what?
Yes, me and Chris was constantly together at that point.
And what type of things did you do?
Hunt, fish, drink, party, four-wheel in the mud.
As you got through your later years, when you met Tabby, let's go back to Tabby for a minute. You were how old when you finally, the last time you connected with her?
19 and a half,
And how old was she?
18.
Also, can I just
There
take
came
a
point in
second?
time where you got married,
Excuse me,
was there an
counselor.
engagement?
Can I just take a moment, y'all, to just make an observation really quick about something in George's demeanor and the way he speaks that I've noticed. I don't know anybody after the age of like 15, really like more like 13, who who continues to say 19 and a half, 13 and a half, 14 and a half. Usually that's a little kid thing because they're wanting to be older. And while you, as a teenager, obviously you want to be older, but you don't want anybody to know you want to be older. So most teenagers don't say things like I'm 13 and a half. If if they are 13 and a half, they'll be like, I'm 13 and I'll be 14 in January. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a very odd phrase that an odd explanation of age. Like, especially because then whenever he's talking about the age difference between Jake and Hannah, you know, three, 3 3/4, 4 3/4 of a year. Like, most people would say 4, almost 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird. I don't understand it. It's just weird. It's a weird turn of it's just odd. George is an odd duck. The end.
Explain that.
We were in Cedar Key, Florida at the time. Me, Tabby, Jake, Hannah, my mom and dad.
All right, and why were you there?
I have a friend of mine that runs a hunting outfitter down there.
Okay, and so were you on a vacation?
Yes.
And so what happened in Florida?
We went hog hunting, fishing, scalloping, and I asked Tabby to marry me.
And what was your answer?
She said yes.
You know when you got here?
Corky.
July 1st of 2011.
July 1st of 2011.
Yes,
Must have been a happy event.
it was.
And so when did you get married?
July 1st, 2012.
Exactly 1 year.
Yes. No chance of forgetting a second anniversary date.
Okay. And where did you get married?
The mission on Bethel, or on Mount Etna.
That's the church you talked about earlier?
Yes,
Kind of the back end of the Flying W?
yes.
And tell us about the wedding.
Catastrophe.
What is that?
Everything went wrong with it.
What do you mean?
Half the stuff didn't show up. The power went out. A great big storm came through. Nothing ended up going right. They mixed the whole music system up, and
But did you get married?
yes,
Was it a happy event
yes,
in spite of all these problems?
yes.
And who was the minister or the preacher that married you?
Kelly Sonareski.
And why him?
I preferred him over my grandmother's preacher.
How did you know Kelly?
I met him in Medford, Ohio. He was a preacher there.
Explain how that worked.
I started going to the church over there when my dad stopped at a yard sale when I was a kid, and the founder of the church invited my father to church.
Okay, and where was this church?
Medford.
In Medford. Okay. And so explain, how old were you about then?
11 or 12.
All right. And so your father met this minister from this church in Medford.
Yes.
Was that Kelly or somebody else?
The founder of the church.
Okay.
I don't know his first name, but I called him Brother King.
And so what happened after your dad met?
We started going to church there.
And you were how old again? I'm sorry.
11 or 12.
And how often would you go to church?
Are you even
Usually
listening
every
to your
Sunday.
clients,
Sometimes
sir?
on Wednesday, but usually every Sunday.
Was it the whole family?
Yes.
And how long did that go on?
Till 07. Till 2007.
All right, so you and Tabby decided to get married.
Yes.
You actually got married.
Yes.
Explain you and Tabby after that.
After that, it was really no different. I got her a job with my grandmother. She refused to get a driver's license, so it was the only place I could get her a job that she could go without a driver's license.
And what did she do?
She worked at the group home where her mother used to work,
And where were you guys living?
on Bethel Hill.
It's interesting. Tabby tells it a
Yes.
different way, George. She says you wouldn't let her
She lived with you periodically up there?
get a driver's license.
Technically, she's been living with me since 2011.
And did Tabby have any medical or other issues?
She had really bad fits.
you mean?
Well,
She would freak out and yell and scream, and it started when she was a kid when I first noticed them, but
And so describe the situation.
as a child, she would just rock back and forth and cry on average 2 or 3 times a week.
And so what would you do?
At that point in time,
Yeah,
just try and calm her down.
how would you do that?
Usually if I'd just give her a hug, she'd calm down, but that was as a child.
Okay, and how about as you got older?
It didn't work when we got back together.
Why not?
She progressed to yelling, screaming, throwing things.
And do you know if she ever had a diagnosis?
I don't know what it really was.
Do you know if she was ever on any medication? or
She's supposed to be.
Did she take her medication?
No.
How did that affect your relationship?
We had a lot of really good days until she had her fits.
What would happen then?
She would yell and scream and throw stuff and bit me many a times.
And so you continued on with your relationship?
Yes,
And when you married her, you knew about this, right?
yes.
So why did you marry her?
Because it's not technically her fault. She's had a rough life.
She told you about what had happened when she was younger?
Yes. Not just her, but her sisters and her mother came out of her mouth, so
But you decided to marry her anyway?
yes.
And so why did you marry her? She knew all this.
I felt bad for her, and we've known each other our whole life, and I thought that I could help her.
not because you loved her.
So
That's
you
so
decided to have a
weird.
Family, is that right?
Yes.
Explain that.
We tried for over a year to have our son,
Okay,
and finally she got pregnant with him.
how did that make you feel?
Best moment of my life.
And so you had a son, right?
Yes.
Between the time that you found out Tabby was pregnant and you had your son, how was your relationship with Tabby?
It was up and down.
What do you mean by that?
A few months in, from the time that she got pregnant, we were in Michigan. Or no, sorry. The first time I was cutting firewood when she called and said the doctor diagnosed her with chlamydia.
Right, and what was that about?
The doctor tried explaining it can lay dormant for years, and like an idiot, I believed this.
All right. And so did you talk to Tabby about this?
She went with the doctor's statement.
Okay. You stayed with her?
Yes, they prescribed her some kind of antibiotics, and ended up she got rid of it.
Okay. And this is while she was pregnant?
Yes.
All right. And then did anything else happen before your son was born?
A couple months before he was born, we were in Dundee, Michigan, and she ended up getting another call from the doctor saying she had it again.
And so what was your reaction to that?
I might have been dumb for the first time, but not the second.
What do you mean by that?
Not going to lay dormant after his son been gone, so she ended up telling me that she was screwing her best friend's dad.
And so what was your reaction?
I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way, but she swore that the baby was mine, and we went on with it.
And do you remember when your son was born?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
When he was born, I ended up getting a DNA test to make sure he was mine. But while we were in the hospital,
Hey, Coolest
it was
Reviews.
driving me nuts with
Thanks for
everything
being
she'd
here.
done, and I tried to leave her at that point.
What do you mean you tried to?
She begged and cried and pleaded for me not to leave her, saying she couldn't raise a kid on her own.
So what did you do?
I ended up caving and stayed with her.
And your son was born, right?
Yes.
What did you think
That's
of that?
leading, but we'll.
It was nice to have my son, but it's not nice to not know if he's yours or not, so
Did that cause any problems in your relationship?
it's always in the back of your head. It doesn't leave.
But you had a DNA test?
Yes.
And your son?
That's
was-
also leading. That's also leading.
So what happened after your son was born? Where did you live?
I still lived on Bethel.
With your parents?
Yes.
And Tabby moved in?
Yes.
Or was living there at the time?
Yes.
And so.
Oh, I don't want to end the stream, but I have to.
For myself, yes, at that point.
All right. Now, you talked earlier about your education. You stopped when you were about 14. Right?
Yes.
And then your mom did some tests and you got a diploma, right?
Yes.
Did you get any education after that?
Hi guys. All right, I have to end the stream because I'm gotta get ready and I have to eat something, y'all. My stomach is eating a hole in my back. And I gotta get ready for the Brooks sentencing. I don't think that the sentencing for Brooks will be never, I'm not even gonna say that. I don't anticipate it being incredibly long. However, Brooks has been known to disrupt the court proceedings, and we all are familiar with his brand. um but I've got to eat something, you guys, and I can't like stream and make myself something to eat because that's just, it's distracting. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna end it for now. I'm gonna come back live at 12:30. I've already have the stream set up, and then we'll listen to what's going on over there with Brooks, and then tonight um we are going to finish the testimony from George today. I would be very surprised, but I've been surprised before, if his testimony doesn't last all day, because they've really barely just scratched the surface and we haven't even got to the day of the crime. So, I don't know when I'm going to have coolest reviews. I was pondering either a grilled cheese sandwich or a turkey sandwich with mayo, lettuce, and tomato. The turkey sandwich, obviously not on the grilled cheese sandwich. I don't know yet. I'm going to think about it. But anyway, so if you haven't done so already, give your girl a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Honestly, you know what I want? I want a big fat cheeseburger, but I'm not having that because a big fat cheeseburger makes a big fat Jen Lu. And as you are well aware of the climate that I live in, uh, I don't get to wear like chunky sweaters or anything that hides the trouble. And so yeah. Plus I don't like my pants to be tight. So that's the plan. I'll see you guys back here in like about an hour. Sound like a plan? All right. Y'all have a good rest of your day for the next hour, and then I'll see you back I'll see you back in an hour. All right. All right. Bye.